What is going on, everybody? Happy Sunday night to you all. We are here. It is February. We're already a month. Already gone by the first month of 2025. It's pretty incredible to think about. Had a busy January. I'll say that. But how's everybody doing out there? Hope you're doing well. I'm going to talk about 5 films tonight that I feel, me personally, my opinion, not that that you guys would love every single one of these, but they're 5 films that I feel like every Romero fan should see because there's some intertwined connection there with Romero's films, Romero's style, or just the Romero world in general. So that's going to be the main topic tonight. We're going to kind of go through these throughout the night, talk about them a little bit, discuss them, and then whatever you guys want to talk about on top of that. So who all do we got in here tonight? I see Brett. Good evening. Gotta love that Don cast photo in the mall. Absolutely. What's going on, brother? Giving you a quick shout out here in a second. If you guys check out what's behind me there, I'm gonna get a closer look at it here in a second. But I just got that in yesterday, actually, and it was kind of funny when it came in. So I'll talk about that here in just a second. Matt, what's up, man? Matt Landrum's in the house. Of course, the Twin Tribes opening up the show tonight. That's one of those songs that's been on repeat for me the past couple of weeks. So that's usually how I go about what music I use at the beginning. So if I come across a song that's just kind of been in my head, just kind of stuck, and I'm just listening to on repeat. So for everybody, anybody who cares or wants to know what I'm listening to these days, there you go. Ed Trader, Music and Entertainment. What's up, Ed? We're planning on having Ed on the show next weekend for the third installment of Collecting the Dead. He sent me a few pictures of his collection so far. And I don't even know where to fucking begin with this thing, but it's gonna be really, really fun next week. I'm gonna kind of let him just kind of take over and show off everything that he's got, and I mean it's pretty incredible. So that should be a fun one. It says I'll be listening while working on my next video. May not see me comment much, but I'm tuning in. Absolutely. I appreciate you hanging out, man. I'll see you next weekend. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to that one. John Vulo's in the house. What's up, John? How are you, sir? Always good to see John. Michael Rajpal's in the house. What's up, Michael? Good to see you. See Jeffrey DeCristofaro. I don't know. That's as good as it's going to get, man. That's a killer name, though. What's up, man? Says I love the whole Dead saga. My top favorite film series of all time. Hey, mine too. Whoa, what a coincidence. But Dawn is my pick of the litter. Yeah, mine too. That's kind of my favorite movie of all time. Some people are Star Wars junkies. Some people are, I don't know, a Godfather junkie. I don't know. People are into different things, I guess. But Dawn of the Dead is definitely mine too. But good to see you, my man. Jade, how you doing, sweetheart? She's tuning in live from downstairs. So appreciate you. Make sure you hit the like button. Goddammit. I tell her that all the time. She never does. Jeffrey says from night to land. That is. Yeah, I mean. I appreciate Diary and Survival to a point. I was actually watching Diary of the Dead the other day. It was on Pluto TV. I was watching that the other day, and I was like, oh, I'll check out Diary. It's been a while since I watched Diary, so I put it on. And I think the biggest issue that I have with Diary of the Dead is just the acting. Some of the dialogue, I think, the dialogue's just a little, because you know, remember when George did Diary, it was like almost immediately after Land of the Dead. Because Land of the Dead, while it didn't, go crazy at the box office in theaters, it did make a ton of money on home video. That's why you go to any used, Blu-ray, DVD store, media store out there, you'll probably come across, a copy of Land of the Dead. But I mean, it sold big time on DVD, on home video. So as soon as that came out, they were like, "Oh, here's some more money, George. Make us another zombie movie." So the Diary of the Dead's a little rushed anyway. But I think that was the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me watching it the other night was, just the acting's not great, and the dialogue just seems a little. It needed a couple of other what would be the word? one overs. Like, I don't know what the fuck. A couple more drafts. I guess we'll just say that. Um, but okay, so I did pronounce your last name correctly. Okay, we'll just go with Jeffrey D. We'll just do that. It's a little easier. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to show you guys what I got in the mail yesterday, and this is partially courtesy of 1911 Guitar Dude, Mr. Brett Aitken there, and so he shot me a message. I think I talked about it last week. He shot me a message, an email, with the link to the eBay listing, and it was like, hey, I found one if you're still interested. So I jumped on it. I got it in, and I'm pretty excited. So I'm gonna try to do something a little different here. I'm gonna try to do a little experimenting here with a multiple camera shoot. We'll just say to kind of get a better look at it, because I feel like it's better to kind of, if I could get some kind of handheld look at it, you can get kind of closer to it and kind of get a better look at it. So we're gonna try this. This could be a complete disaster. But we're going to try. We're going to do our best. Let's see. There we go. All right. Enter the studio here. So I'm going to try to do this on my phone, so bear with me. All right. All right, I can kind of hear myself here. Let me see. So yeah, here it is. Been looking for one of these. I might take this off. Been looking for one of these for a long time. I've become close to purchasing one a couple of times before, but each time it fell through. I don't know how the sound's coming in on this, but yeah, it's the J.C. Penney's solid state TV on top of the civil defense drum here, kind of like it was in the movie. I told Matt all I need now is just a little paper cup there sitting in front of it, and I think that'll be I think it'll be complete. So, but yeah, I don't know if you guys can see the solid state level. It's in really good shape. I was really excited to see that it turned on. The power still worked on it. It's still got the antenna intact. I mean, it's in really it's in really nice condition for a 45-year-old item here. J.C. Penney's knew how to build a fucking TV back in the day. Most TVs now won't last you 5 years. But yeah, I got it over here in my Dawn corner. I'll go ahead and we'll just do a whole thing here. So there's my video store poster, the 3D poster. Anyway, hey, there's my Monroeville Mall Ice Palace skates. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off for now. And and I'll hop back on the actual camera on the computer now. But yeah, so there it is. Better closer look at it there. I'm stoked. I don't know. I've tried to buy this thing like 3 different times. All right, I'm back. So yeah, like I was saying, I've tried to buy that thing. This is my third time. Third time's a charm. First time I bought it, I put in a bid on eBay, and then it was taken down almost immediately. And then I emailed the guy about why, and he said, "Oh, somebody made a big cash offer," and I went ahead and took it. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of shitty," but so that fell through. And then Larry messaged me. I don't know. It's probably been about a year ago now. Well, yeah, maybe close to a year ago now. I found another one on eBay for a pretty good price, and then I went ahead and ordered it, and never heard back from the guy again. I went ahead and paid for it, and I was waiting, never heard anything, and then I ended up messaging him. He's like, "Hey, have you sent you sent the TV yet?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, man, I'm behind. I'll get it into the mail." I was like, "Oh, no worries. It'd been a couple of weeks at that point." I was like, "Oh, no worries. As long as it's still coming, that's fine." Never heard from him again. So just ghosted me on that one. So third time's a charm. Finally got it in. And it was funny yesterday when I got it because me and my daughter were out. out all day pretty much yesterday. I took her to a flea market, her first flea market experience. Um, and so we went to a flea market. By the time I got home, I had noticed that the package was sitting on the front door. She comes up, she's like, "Oh my god, I got a present!" Because when she sees a package on the front door, she automatically assumes that it's hers. Um, so we bring it inside, and I to get the box, and I start opening it, and she's getting all excited. And this thing was, the packaging was perfect. I'm gonna give this guy a hell of a review on eBay. Packaged beautifully. Um, yeah, all kinds of bubble wrap, and kids love bubble wrap. Adults love bubble wrap. Who the hell doesn't love bubble wrap? It's like that scene in Naked Gun. I think it's the third Naked Gun movie where they try to distract the guards, so they pull out a big box of bubble wrap, and the guards just go to town on it. That's how we all are. Um, it's a great scene. I love the fucking Naked Gun movies. So we get it open. I'm opening it and pulling out the bubble wrap and all the styrofoam shit like that. And as soon as I pull it out, I'm like, "Hey, it's a TV." My daughter's 4. She's never seen a TV like this, but she was just blown away. She was like, "Oh, wow, that's my TV." I'm like, "No, it's not your TV. It's Daddy's TV." Um, and so, yeah, I turn it on. I get it plugged in. I turn it on, and then she's trying to turn the knobs, like trying to find, Nastia or one of those shows she watches on YouTube. She's like, "It's not working. It's broke. It's broke." I'm like, "Nah, it works, but it's just not going to pick up anything." And then she was pissed as hell when I brought it upstairs. I was like, "No, I'm taking it." She's like, "No, that goes in my room." So it was a whole thing. So I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm super stoked. And then I went ahead and bought the fucking drum too that goes with it. Because that was always the plan. Like when I find a TV, I'm buying a drum, and then I'm creating the little setup there from Dawn, and that was that. Um, yeah, that's it. Script passes is the term you're looking for. Now, there's also a term. What do they call it in Hollywood? Where I'm just punching up scripts. There's certain people that they hire just to fucking punch up script. A couple more punch ups. What is that? I don't know. Jefferson, actually, you got my last name right the first time. Hell yeah. DiCristofaro. DiCristofaro. I like that. But Jeffrey D or GDC. I can go with that. We'll do do nicely, quite nicely as well. Hey, I'm glad I got it on the first try. I do my best. Um, yeah, that footage there of the TV was courtesy of my iPhone 5. Well, it's an iPhone 8, so get it right. I'm not that far behind. Um, Brett said, "So happy the Dawn TV arrived and working well." Absolutely, man. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for looking out for me and keeping an eye out. Because I was pretty damn stoked. Now that model is actually not the exact one from Dawn of the. It's the same model, same everything. It's the same model number, but it's a couple of years older, just a later manufactured date. So it wouldn't be the exact one that they use in Dawn, but it's the same model. It's pretty much the same thing. So I went ahead and I was like, I'm grabbing it. Fuck it. I've already been burned twice, so I'm not missing out on this one. Jefferson, hey, that was the TV Steven was using. That's right. That's the TV. And I was looking up. I was trying to find a way if there, which is completely ridiculous, but if there was a way that I could, get some kind of transmitter or something to kind of stream something to the TV, and I was just gonna play the fucking the WGN civil defense thing that's up at the beginning of the streams. I'll just have that running in the back the whole time, but I don't want to keep it running because I'm kind of worried it may just blow if I just keep it on through a whole stream. But I think that does quite nicely as it is. Yeah, Everly was pretty excited about a 45-year-old TV. So, but I guess it's pretty. I mean, most kids will never see anything like that in their lifetime, I guess. So, I'm asking, just curious, what's the model? I know it's a JCPenney solid state. The model. Hang on a second. I'll look. I'll let you know. Hang on. So 685 1001D is the model number that's on there. The model from the couple years previous, which would be the one that they would use in the movie, would be B. So 1001B. So 685 or 658, whatever the hell I said. Go back and rewind it. I can't even remember what it is now, but it's 1001B, A, B, C, D, It kind of just says what year they were manufactured, I guess. Matt's asking, were they blasting Roy Orbison at the flea market? Actually, yeah. I think at one point I remember hearing they were playing Roy Orbison. They're playing some Hank Williams. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, that flea markets are, catering to an older generation, I guess, an older audience. So it's that usual soundtrack, the Johnny Cash, the Roy Orbison, the Elvis. I mean, God, there's gonna be Elvis, Beatles, shit like that. So, hey, Bonnie Bailey. Bonnie Bailey's in the house. Good to see you, Bonnie. Zombie Historian stopping in. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Hello. Jadek. I mean, yeah, I guess that'd be a good. That's your hip hop name. We'll go with that. But I'm gonna continue to try to go. I'm gonna keep it rolling. I'm gonna say the entire thing correctly. I take pride in that. I try to, at least. There's a subscriber that tunes in sometimes on these live streams and will comment on videos and stuff like that. His name's Aro Padgery. And I was so concerned about getting that name correct because it's like Aaropajari. I was like, is it Aro Pajari? So I actually Googled it and looked up, with the proper pronunciation of that name and shit. I'm really anal about stuff like that. I'm really bad when it comes to shit like that. Like if I'm texting, I'm one of those guys that'll spend 10 minutes on one text because I overthink it, and I go back and I'm like, I'll say that differently, or I do this differently, or yeah. Me writing things is not good. Yeah, boxes and boxes and boxes. Yeah, I mean, it was just boxed 1,000 different times and taped. But I mean, that's I was hoping that would be the case to make sure that everything was good. Steven, what's up, man? Steven Newstreck Jr., what's up, buddy? It says you may be able to hook an old school VCR up to it, and you could play everyone's favorite movie, Dawn of the Dead 2004. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I don't know. I don't see very many, connection options on that thing. It's pretty standard. It's if you pick up something on... you pick up something on that antenna, you're not picking up anything at all. Because it's an analog, and I think everything that you would pick up on an antenna now is all digital now, so it's all, So I don't know if anything's ever going to play on that TV, but just the fact that it actually turns on, and just the aesthetic of the static, it just kind of takes you back to the movie a little bit. It's like, they might come back on. There hasn't been a broadcast for 3 days. Why don't you give it up? That type of thing. So I like the aesthetic, if nothing else. Okay, got it. Very cool. Jeff says, Jeffrey DeCristofaro, there we go. Imagine if the zombie apocalypse actually did happen and you would have to lug that TV with you in your backpack. Wouldn't leave many other survivors. Hey, I mean, if Peter and Roger can do it, if they can get around the fucking shopping mall with that thing in a wheelbarrow along with, a radio and everything else, I mean... yeah, I'd probably be fucked. I don't think I could do that. I'm no Peter, I'm no Roger, so I'll happily admit that now. Uh-oh. We got something from the man himself, the zombie historian here. So I'll go ahead and hit him with it right here.
You never know.
Money, money, money. Right.
Zombie historian with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Lower donation this week. Picked up your Halloween Day of the Dead shirt. Let's loot the bank. Absolutely, sir. Thank you very much. Dude, $10 is beyond. I don't ask you guys for anything. I never will. So just the fact that you give anything it really means a lot to me. That's really, really freaking cool, man. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you for picking up the t-shirt too. Actually, my fiance Jade was just asking me how many people have bought your t-shirt. Do anybody buy your t-shirts? I'm like, yeah, I've had a few people buy them. So she's like, oh, that's surprising to me. I'm, oh, okay, thank you. Here she is now. Don't talk shit about the Beatles around me, I'll cry. I'm not talking shit about the Beatles, but the common soundtrack for every flea market is pretty much the same. Like, you're not gonna walk into a flea market and hear, Lil Wayne or anything like that. Um, but yeah, thank you so much, man. Thank you, Zombie Historian. I always appreciate it. It means a lot. Let me go back here. I missed a couple. Matt says they were literally blasting Roy Orbison and the Beatles at the one I was at yesterday. There you go. That's hilarious. Same soundtrack and everybody. I think they may have like a radio station. You know how like you go to Sonic and they have like Sonic Radio and it's the same shit that plays at every Sonic. I think there may be like a flea market headquarters where they just play the same shit that everybody just kind of tunes in. Let's see. Ed saying, does it have the old 2-screw pitchfork looking attack? Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about, and if I think that one, that's what that has. So, yeah, I don't know too much about old TVs or the technology of them. I barely know much about the technology of modern TVs. So, but hey, I'll look into it. If there's a way that I can get that sucker to do some cool shit, I'm gonna do it. So. Matt saying, I can't stay late after work early. If I know you at all, I'm going to guess your picks and see how my aim is in the morning. There's a few that you can probably guess, but there's a couple in here that I think might throw some people a little bit of a curveball. So you can probably guess a few, but there may be a couple of surprises in there. We'll get to them here in just a second. Let me hit these real quick. Oh, Matt's saying in no particular order: Night, Dawn, Martin, Night Riders, Narco. Actually, no. So the topic of tonight, it's going to be 5 non-Romero films that every Romero fan should see. So maybe your guesses won't quite be. They're non-Romero films, but they're films that every Romero fan should see. That's the best way that I can describe it. Just kidding. Can you tell Abby to shut the hell up? Yeah, 1 second. Let me mute. There we go. Don't call, come on, Matt. Don't call, Pete on me. Abby's just loud. She's a good dog, and she means well, but she's loud as hell. Steven says if it has that little plug in the back where you'd screw in a cable wire, it could get an image of a VCR, I hope. I don't think it does. I don't even think it has that. I think it's literally just analog over the air. Whatever picks up on the antenna is what you're going to get. I don't even think, because you got to think that came out, pre-VCR, pretty much. I think the first model would probably been 76, would be the first model. So they were just like, oh, well, the VCRs will never be a thing. But yeah, so before we get to the movies, and we'll kind of just go through them throughout the night here. I got 5 films that every Romero fan should see at least once. I keep adding to that. I don't know. I'm just trying to clarify here. But a little bit of news here on the ongoing saga, the ongoing story of the sale of the Monroeville Mall. An official announcement was made Friday from the company CBL Properties, which was the company that owned the mall previously, that just sold the mall. They actually released a press release on Friday listing the the number that they sold it for here. I'll go ahead and just read this a little bit because there's a lot of jargon in this. But this is from the what website is this from? I think this is from the official CBL website. CBL Properties announces the sale of Monroeville Mall for $34 million. $34 million for the Monroeville Mall, which is insane because the last time that mall was sold in 2004, it sold for, I want to say $230 million, I want to say. So a couple $100 million less than what it sold for 20 years ago. Which is understandable. I mean, we all know malls are kind of in decline. The popularity's kind of gone down. The mall does need some work. I've noticed that last year when we were at Living Dead Weekend in June, especially on the outside. It just looked like it needed some upkeep. But I still feel like that's just a really low number, $34 million, which I guess makes sense because, the company that came in and bought it, it was a cash offer. I mean, they just paid for it cash. And when we find out the company that purchased it, it all makes sense. I'll go ahead and just read this little line here. Chattanooga, Tennessee, Business Wire, CBL Properties today announced that it had closed on the sale of Monroeville Mall and Annex in Monroeville, Pennsylvania for $34 million, all cash. The sale of Monroeville Mall is a great example of the resilient value of well-located real estate in a dynamic market, commented Stephen B. Leibowitz, CBL's chief executive officer. This transaction allows us to focus efforts on higher productivity properties, generates significant cash proceeds, and further reduces leverage. And then it goes on, some other jargon about CBL properties. CBL sold them all, $34 million. That's why, I mean, literally, if you go back and listen to that first breaking news live stream that I did, it was like 30 minutes long or whatever, I was saying, oh shit, the mall is up for sale. Literally, by the time I was off the air that night, the listing had been taken down because this offer, I guess, had already come in. And then, literally within the span of like a month, the mall is sold, and it just happened so fast. And the company that purchased the mall, doing a little research into them, it's Cypress Equities. They're $1 billion real estate company. I'm gonna pull this up. I got their website pulled up now, so we'll all kind of look at their website and kind of look at what they do with some of the properties, because they do own a few shopping malls around the United States. Like I said, they're $1 billion company. I mean, they're pretty big shit, I guess. Cypress Equities. Founded in 1995, Dallas, Texas, with a core focus on single-tenant build-to-suit developments. I don't know who gives a shit about that. The portfolio grew quickly and established its national reputation, synonymous with the premier development, operation, and management of destination-class commercial and residential properties in the U.S. I mean, they're a pretty big deal, and mostly looking at their portfolio here, at some of their other properties, is a premier developer, operator, and manager for over $2 billion of globally invested equity. Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, it's not like somebody scraped together the money to just purchase them all on a lowball offer. Like, I mean, when you pay $34 million cash, I mean, that's it's pretty significant. But they currently own the Bayshore Mall, or shopping center, or whatever you want to call that, in Glendale, Wisconsin, Legacy Square in Linden, New Jersey, the Flagstaff Mall in Flagstaff, Arizona, a couple other things here, Augusta Park, Bassett Place. So they own properties all over the United States right now. I want to take a look at Flagstaff Mall, because I mean, it's a shopping mall, so it'd be kind of similar, just to kind of get an idea of what they do with their properties. Let me click on that. So yeah, it's a very Arizona looking setting there. Food court. So yeah, I mean, it's still a shopping mall, so I think that's a good sign, that they actually have shopping malls in their portfolio. And just from what I've read about them, basically, I'm guessing what they're wanting to do at the shopping mall is to update it and bring it modernize it, make it more, I guess just make it more modern or more high scale. That's the word that I've heard a lot in listening to the news about and just reading about Cypress Equities. They're a high end. They want to turn. I'm guessing they're going to want to turn Monroeville Mall into a higher end mall, which, good or bad, I don't really know how to feel about that. I mean, it's good news for the mall itself in terms of its survival. So yeah, I mean, you could tell this is like, I guess this is more of an outdoor shopping center, Bayshore. But yeah, I'll go ahead and take that down. So yeah, I guess their basic idea is they're going to want to take Monroeville Mall and make it more of a high-end thing, which, I was talking to Larry the other night about it when the announcement came down, and just kind of going back and just kind of brainstorm is like, well, what could their plan be? Because I mean, you come in that quick with an offer, cash, $34 million cash that quick. There's got to be a plan in place. They got to have an idea of what they want to do with the mall going forward. Is it good, bad for the mall, for the storefronts in the mall, for the shoppers of the mall, for the area? I think it's a mixed bag. I think it may be a good thing for the shoppers in the area, the people that just want to go to a mall, or maybe it'd be good for the Monroeville's economy in general. But Larry did bring up a good point in terms of like, well, if they're gonna make it a high end, a higher class mall or whatnot, it's going to drive out some of the smaller stores, the smaller companies that currently have a storefront in the Monroeville Mall, more the local shops and stuff like that. And that does include the Living Dead Museum and Kevin Christ. And that's the big thing that if they do come in, they have a plan to remodel it and just reconfigure it or what they want to do. For one thing, with that will definitely come the loss of a lot of like the upgrading. Like I just know one of the first things they're going to do is upgrade or whatnot the fucking the loading dock entrance. The piece of the mall that still looks almost exactly the same as it did in 1977 when they shot Dawn of the Dead. That's probably going to be redone completely. And who knows what else they're going to do? I mean, there's so many options. I mean, you're looking at what they're doing now, or what they do now with their current properties. I can kind of picture what they're doing. I told Larry this. I was explaining it to Larry. It's like, malls are dying. There's a lot of malls in the Pittsburgh area, but a lot of them are not doing too well. The one mall that I think stands the best chance might be the Monroeville Mall, because it's the one that still has fairly good traffic and and maybe their plan is, it's like I was explaining to him, like I grew up near Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know how many of you guys have been to Nashville, Tennessee here lately, but 10 years ago, Nashville was on the verge of a boom in terms of population and all that. And now it's 2 or 3 times as the size that it was. I feel like Pittsburgh is kind of nearing that. I get the vibe that Pittsburgh is going to experience some kind of boom here in the near future. And the thing that kind of tells me that is when you look at corporate America moving into the city. The Iron City sign that's been up on that hill for so many years, Iron City beer, that's gone. That's been replaced with I don't even remember what the hell it is, but it's a bigger corporation. The Heinz Field, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play, it was the Heinz Field forever, and now it's Acrisure Stadium, which is not a Pittsburgh company at all. The Science Center, they renamed that. It's it's now a corporate. And these companies are moving in. And that usually happens. I've seen it happen with Nashville. Nashville was a smaller market, like it was not what it is now. But you can kind of see the first signs that that there's going to be some kind of population boom coming soon. And you can see that with Nashville. I saw that with Nashville. I'm kind of getting the vibe that that's what's happening to the entire area, the Pittsburgh area right now, or within the next 4 or 5 years. And in saying that, Nashville back in the day, like when I was a kid, Nashville had, 5 or 6, flourishing, thriving shopping malls. In the 90s, early 2000s, there was Hickory Hollow Mall, Green Hills Mall. I mean, there were a ton of malls. Now there's basically one, and it's Opry Mills, which is, a big high-end shopping mall with all kinds of big stores and big displays, and that's kind of just from what I've been reading and kind of the vibe that I've gotten from what Cypress is wanting to do with the Monroeville Mall. Maybe they want to do something like that, and kind of make the Monroeville Mall the mall for the entire Pittsburgh area. Because it's kind of like Opry Mills is not directly in Nashville. It's like kind of on the outskirts of Nashville a little bit. But that's the mall to go to if you're in Nashville, you're from Nashville. Like that's the only mall really left. So if that's the case, I mean that's a good news for the future of the mall in general, in terms of its survival. Which I was always dreading the idea of it becoming one of those dead malls that you see all the time, where there's no stores, no people, and you're just like this empty, although it would be kind of cool to walk through an empty Monroeville Mall with just like this creepy fucking mall music playing. But I mean, that does say that there is possibly a future, a bright future for the mall going forward. It may not resemble the mall that we all know and love. That's a very big possibility, very big probability actually, which sucks. But and yeah, like Larry was saying, it's probably not good news. I mean, they're probably going to raise the rent to have a store in that mall if they're going to try to make it a higher end thing. And that's probably not good news for the smaller, local store owners like Kevin. And that does worry me. And that does, I mean, whether or not Living Dead, and I still say this, like Living Dead Weekend, I think all we can really do is try to make that as big of a success this year as we can. Get as many people there, spend as much money as they can, and just show these people like, hey, this is a big deal. At least there needs to be something, something there always to kind of commemorate George, or George has a place in that mall. The movies, legacy, George, there has to be a spot in that mall. Whether or not they go for that, I don't know. But the most we can do is just kind of show them how important it is to fucking weirdos like us, So yeah, I mean, I definitely see both sides of the coin. There is. I try to look at it as positive as possible, but I don't know. What do you guys think? How are you guys feeling about this with all the news kind of coming down, and the sale has officially been announced, and we can kind of look and see what may come of the mall in the future. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. I'm assuming they're going to gut the mall beyond recognition. Yeah, I mean that was kind of Larry's feeling talking to him the other day, was that it's not going to resemble anything that we remember or love about the mall, unfortunately, sadly. Which, I mean, selfishly as a fan of the movie, I mean it's really, if a mall is going to continue into the future, and they did this, back in the early 2000s, and I think they did it in the 80s, because I know they got rid of the Ice Palace and shit. Because food courts were more popular in the 80s than ice rinks. But for a mall to continue, I mean, I guess it does have to progress and keep up with the times, so to speak. So for a fan like me, for you, or anybody that's watching this right now, everybody kind of wants the mall to be the same. If it was up to me, if these motherfuckers bought this thing for $34 million and then restored it back to the way it was in the fucking 70s, and I think that's kind of not a bad idea. I mean, nostalgia sells, especially in this day and age. And for a shopping mall, if you could make a shopping mall kind of resemble a mall from the 80s or 90s, not the 70s, but the 80s or 90s, and kind of give, our generation a chance to, oh, fuck, like, the neon, or, I think that might be a cool idea. They're not going to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing, where it's like, it's not going to, there's no way that it's going to stay the same. There's going to be some additions to it. Who knows? I don't know. It's not a fun topic. I'll just say that. That said, I think I read somewhere that Monroeville Mall still has around 70% or 80% occupancy, which isn't bad. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying the mall itself is not, like, the biggest like bad rap that the mall gets now is just some of the stupid ass people that fighting, shooting, shit like that. I've always seen like some stupid stories, and a lot of the times it's like, it's not real, it's not true, it's like a false alarm, like But they've had a history there with people and violence and shit like that. So I don't know, maybe if they really put in the money if they can turn Monroeville Mall into Opry Mills or one of those types of malls, like, maybe it'll revitalize the Monroeville area. And I don't know. All I'm saying is, Jeffrey Crehan, put that motherfucker in charge of security, make him the head of security at that place, and that fucking mall. There will be no shenanigans going down at that mall. That mall will be snug as a bug, secure, because that dude loves the mall. That dude loves the mall as much as anybody. And I would feel comfort in knowing that he's there keeping an eye on things. For those of you guys that know Jeff. Let's see. Ed saying high-end mall. They're turning it into Fiddler's Green. Yeah, that's a perfect example. It's gonna be the new Fiddler's Green, pretty much. And then fucking zombies like us invade it like Big Daddy and the crew, and at least once a year. That's all we ask. Just once a year. We don't ask for much. Jefferson, so much has changed in just. I think it's nearly half a century after Dawn's release. Yeah, not all of it for the better, especially in terms of movies today. Yeah, I mean, it's the mall is always in a constant state of changing, and it always has been. But just kind of the idea, it's just kind of become a place of gathering for people at Living Dead weekend, stuff like that. So it's something we're all accustomed to. So it's just going to be. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. I mean, I like the idea that the mall will have a future and will continue to exist and, maybe become a popular mall. But I mean, even if it does, like, at least give a part to George, like keep the bus there or have a display or name that fucking court there at the end of the mall. Name it after him. I don't fucking care. But I'll tell you this, they can do whatever the fuck they want if they brought back the clock tower. If they rebuilt the clock tower and put it back right where it was, just and that's it, and then whatever. Like, I will come and genuflect to the clock tower once a year. I don't fucking care. Family vacation. Hey, if you're talking about Pittsburgh, I'm down for that. I'm always down for that. You gotta talk me into that. Matt saying, I feel like this will be the last Living Dead weekend at the mall. I don't want that to be true, but that's just what it feels like. As sad as I feel, I'm super excited about going this year and making it a big deal. Yeah. I mean, there's a very, very, very good chance. Although it is a good sign that the new owners are allowing this year's event to go on status quo. Like Kevin said in his statement, it's a good sign that they're open to letting it go ahead as planned. It's kind of giving. I look at it like it's an opportunity to show the new owners, like, oh, this could be a cool boost to your bottom line every June or whenever, June, July, once a year. This could be a nice little boost. It could get more attention to the mall, but. Like I said, they already have their plans in place, and they're going to do what they're going to do. And there's not much that we can do directly. Although there is, you can look here. They got the team listed here. You can email Chris McGuire, the CEO of Cypress Equities, if you'd like. Although that probably wouldn't get anywhere. You probably have to find like a I don't know, some kind of managing director or something. That might be a bad idea. Let's not do that. They might start getting fucking crazy ass emails from crazy ass people, and they're like, all right, we want to stay as far away from this shit as possible. We don't want that. Let's not do that. But yeah. Let's see, Brett saying, I'm worried that the new mall owner will change too much. Yeah, hoping that they can't remove or cover up the marble. When I arrive at Living Dead weekend, I'm headed straight to the loading dock. That's the place to go. And if you find the way, go down the entrance with the big fucking hill, where the bikers come down. Go down that hill, play the Dawn of the Dead theme, and it's literally it takes you right to the movie, because everything in that area looks exactly the same. Like, it's still got the the Firestone building there, and you go down and everything still looks exactly as it did in the movie. That's the way to fucking go about it, man. But yeah, I'm looking forward to finally meeting you there. So we'll definitely hook up and have us a time. Matt says, yeah, like Black Friday for the whole mall, one weekend a year. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get, however you feel about the idea of like a horror convention taking place in your shopping mall, really it just comes down to, we're getting people coming to the mall from all over the world for 3 days straight that are coming to the mall, and they're going to be in the mall. Whether they're there to shop, whatever. They're there for the convention, they're going to eat, they'll probably, need to buy something from a store, a t-shirt, shoes. I don't fucking know. I see people do that all the time. So I mean, it's literally a chance the one shopping mall that exists in the world where people will travel from all over the world to just hang out there for 3 days. Like, people don't do that for the fucking Mall of America. They go for a day and it's like, oh, it's fun, and then that's it. They never come back. It's just like, oh yeah, I've been to the Mall of America back in '94. I was there, and then they move on with their life. But Monroeville Mall, like people like us, we go back. Once, sometimes twice a year. Some people more than that. Speaking of people more than that, Larry's in the house. What's up, Larry? Yeah, we're Larry says, I'm just tuning in now. Anything going on? Just going over the recent news and the press release from CBL Properties about the sale of the Monroeville Mall and what it means going forward, and just kind of going over the different theories and thoughts. And I kind of brought up, what you were saying about what it would mean for Kevin and the event, and the ability for Kevin to still have his stores and the museum in the mall, and how that's, probably not likely if things progress as we're anticipating them to. But I still say, all it really comes down to in the end is Living Dead Weekend this year. If it is the last one, let's fucking go out with a bang. And let's just try to show the new owners, like, hey, there is a place for this in your future. Like, there's a place for this here. Whether you get it, whether you understand it, whatever. Like, it's a big deal for certain people, and there's a place for that. And you would be smart to kind of, embrace that. But who fucking knows? Who knows? All we can do is sit back and wait, see how things go. But I have seen people that are pretty optimistic about it. I was reading, I think it was on, I don't know, it was an article that I was reading earlier today that somebody posted in one of the groups on Facebook, where they were interviewing a lot of the people that worked at the stores in the mall, and a lot of the shoppers, and a lot of those people seemed, a little optimistic. They weren't like overly optimistic, like, holy shit, like our savior's here, but it's like, oh, this could be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing, But I have seen some positivity from some other people that were close to the situation, so I'm trying to keep hope, man, just trying to keep the faith alive. Brett saying, looking forward to meeting you at the mall too. Definitely be playing the Dawn theme tomorrow. Hell yeah, man. My first year when we first went, I had a whole playlist set up and ready. So when we went to Braddock to visit the Martin locations and stuff like that, I had the Martin soundtrack ready to go. When we got to the mall, I had the Dawn soundtrack ready to go. And we got to the cemetery, Evans City Cemetery, all of which you have to visit at least once while you're there, man. Because if nothing else, the Evans City Cemetery looks exactly the same as it did. Because it's a fucking cemetery. There's trees and stuff that are no longer there, but it's a cemetery. Not a lot's going to change. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm stoked for you, man. I know you're gonna have a fucking blast. Larry says everyone needs to attend any events put on by Kevin and all of us at the Living Dead Weekend. Absolutely, and I tell everybody that every year, no matter what's going on. If you can, make it happen, because especially this year, I always say, like, you never know that this may be the last one. It's your last chance, your last opportunity. And like we were saying last week, I think we're planning on doing Larry's tour on Sunday. We're doing the Sunday tour with Brett. I think Matt's down. I think Matt said that Paul Farber's down to do it, just in case it is the last time that we can take that tour, the last tour, which is sad to fucking think about. But so anybody that's going, if you take the tour, take it on Sunday, take it with us. Like, come hang out with us and let's celebrate and have a good time and watch Larry do his thing, because especially if it's your first time, it's fucking impressive. Larry takes you back to the time that fucking Dawn was filmed. Takes you back and puts it. He'll put the imaginary fucking Dawn sunglasses on, kind of like in They Live, where all of a sudden you're back there. And, you're like, holy shit! Like that, I can see that now. I know that scene. Like you said, the future is very uncertain. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But like I said, I'm trying to stay positive, even though it's uncertain. It is possible that it is something good, but we shall see. We shall see. And Matt says, yes, Sunday tickets are already purchased. There you go. So, if you're going, if you want to take the tour, take it on Sunday, take it with us, and we'll have a good old time. But all right, let me get this off here. Then we'll go ahead and get into the five films that every Romero fan should see. And let me stop that. Let's see, which one do I want to do first here? I guess we'll talk about... Well, shit, the disc isn't even in here, but we'll go ahead and talk about this one first. So the first title, the first film on the list here for 5 films every Romero fan should see at least once. We'll just put that little caveat in there. Love it or hate it. Make sure I got everything in place here, because I got... All right, so the first film we're going to talk about tonight, that if you're a Romero fan, you should definitely see. It's kind of a 2-for-1 here. I'll go 2-for-1 on this one, because it's kind of the same film, and they all kind of, to me, they kind of connect with George's work in different ways, these 2 films. But I'm talking about 1964's Last Man on Earth, starring Vincent Price, and 1971's The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston. I do have Omega Man on Blu-ray, but I don't own Last Man on Earth. I used to. I have it on DVD somewhere, but it's probably in storage somewhere, and I can't get to it. But instead, we're gonna watch the fucking trailer. So here's the trailer for Last Man on Earth, 1964, starring Vincent Price. And watch this trailer, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this already, because it is very reminiscent. And George has always talked about I Am Legend being a huge inspiration and a huge, I guess inspiration is the word for it. Fucking, I don't know. For Night of the Living Dead. So here's the trailer. Last Man on Earth, 1964, starring Vincent Price. Here we go.
We switch you to the state capitol, where His Excellency, the Governor, is speaking from the Executive Mansion.
Further, I have, in conjunction with the federal government,
Declared this state to be a disaster area.
I was sent to keep you here until they come.
To kill me.
Vampires, alive among the lifeless, that make the night hideous with their inhuman cravings. If they are not destroyed in the flaming pits of hellfire, or staked to the ground in the light of the sun, will the unbelievable become real? A world of inanimate zombies by day, irresistible, horrifying attackers by night. Can a zombie woman's hunger for love repopulate the earth?
So yeah, there we go. Last Man on Earth, 1964. Vincent Price, directed by Sidney Salco and I can't think of the other guy's name. I was just looking at it, but yeah, 1964. I mean, it is this and the Omega Man, which we'll talk about as well, with Charlton Heston, starring Charlton Heston. This is 1971. Both inspired or based off of the book, the novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. And George had always talked about. I ripped off Dawn of the Dead ripped off Night of the Living Dead from Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend. He's always mentioned that. He's always given it proper due, so he's never tried to take credit for that aspect of that inspiration for it. But I will say that when you watch The Last Man on Earth, because I watched it again here recently. It had been a little bit since I'd seen it. Because, like I said, I have it on DVD, but it's in storage somewhere. It's probably been years. But watching it again, and you could definitely see it in that trailer there. You can see the inspiration that George drew for Night of the Living Dead, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. There's some images, the movement, because in Last Man on Earth they're vampires. They're not zombies, but they're still quote unquote living dead. But George just made them zombies, living dead ghouls, flesh eaters, as opposed to I guess they drink blood in Last Man on Earth or whatever. But so yeah, you can definitely see in the style, the look of Night of the Living Dead, especially like some of the shots, like when that door opened in that trailer there, you could see the woman vampire walking through the doorway. It's very reminiscent of when John Russo, when his zombie character walks in Night of the Living Dead. So it definitely a big, it definitely, you can see the inspiration that George drew from the movie Last Man on Earth. As well as the novel I Am Legend. He always credits the novel. I don't know if I've ever really heard him say like, "Oh yeah, I saw Last Man on Earth and it really inspired a lot of the look and then the way that the creatures act and the ghouls act in Night of the Living Dead." But watching it, the other day, I was like, and it's probably been a month ago. But watching it again, I was like, wow, you can really see Night of the Living Dead in Last Man on Earth, because I mean it's based, pretty much based on the same story of I Am Legend. And then a few years later, 1971, we get the Omega Man, which is also based off of Matheson's I Am Legend with Charlton Heston. And this one is more of, this one, like I've said before, like reading George's original treatment for Dawn of the Dead from the early 70s, which is a completely different film than what we got. It felt a lot like the Omega Man. It kind of felt like George had just seen the Omega Man before he started writing that Dawn treatment, which he went a completely different direction with, because in the original treatment that George wrote, it's two characters. The world's kind of been done for quite a while, like, and then they've just lived in this shopping mall for so long. But the way that the zombies act in that version of Dawn of the Dead in that treatment is very reminiscent of the way that the the heels or the bad guy, I forget what they call them in this, the vampires, the way that they kind of act in the Omega Man. They kind of, they're scheming, they plan things, there's a leader, that's kind of what it was. So I felt like George really drew a lot of inspiration from a lot of these adaptations of the Richard Matheson novel, I Am Legend. George probably did read the book, and that was a huge inspiration on it, but I feel like George probably saw these films around that time period, and it did kind of inspire him. Because, I mean, you got to think, like, George was kind of walking on, he was kind of walking a path that nobody had ever really walked before, you know what I mean? Like, in creating the rules of the modern zombie, or the rules of the modern zombie film, or really doing a film like Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead. It was kind of unheard of. Like, there weren't a lot of apocalyptic, like, world is over, like, empty streets, and there really wasn't a big thing before Night and Last Man Standing. I'm about to yell at that goddamn dog again. Jade, if you're watching, shut her up. Or Matt, you may need to call fucking PETA. Anyway, so I truly see a lot of inspiration that George took from the Omega Man, Last Man on Earth, both films. And both films are great. If you have not seen the Omega Man, if you have not seen The Last Man on Earth, I highly recommend checking them out. I'm a big fan of both of them. Vincent Price is great in Last Man on Earth. I like Last Man on Earth enough that last time I watched it, I kind of got an idea for like a short film based off of it, because I wrote a screenplay back in the day. It's kind of off topic, but I wrote a screenplay back in the day, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years ago, called Pizza Boy, and I wrote it while I was a pizza delivery driver for Papa John's. And I was working the night shift, so I'd work from like 5 to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, so I would see some pretty weird, wild fucking shit that late at night delivering pizzas. I got stories if you guys ever want to hear them, but so I was writing the screenplay about a character that's kind of alone at night, living this life, because I was like a fucking vampire doing that job. Like I said, I would I would work from about 5 to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, come home, do whatever, and I wouldn't go to bed till 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I would go to bed, sleep until about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then go to work, like that type of thing. So I didn't see a whole lot of sunlight back in the day. Like I was pretty zonked. So I was starting to write a screenplay about this type of lifestyle, this weird, the weird shit that you come across late at night delivering pizza. And I thought it'd be really cool to do that opening for that, and then in the exact same way that the opening for Last Man on Earth goes on. So I don't know. Maybe that's something I'll do one day. But and the Omega Man's one that I've loved ever since I first saw it. It just has that vibe. I will say it does feel like a George film if it were made by old Hollywood, if that makes any sense. Like, it's got Charlton Heston, and Charlton Heston's kind of playing the Charlton Heston role. Like, I'm Charlton Heston, and I kill all the bad guys and fuck all the bitches. Like, that's pretty much a lot of his role in this. Whereas Vincent Price's version of this character in Last Man on Earth is more of the scientific, intellectual type. Whereas this one, he's just running around with a machine gun, just blasting these fuckers out of the way. But he's still cool. He's still fucking Charlton Heston. But yeah, it just feels like an apocalyptic type of Romero type film that Hollywood tried to do at the time. Like old Hollywood, not the new Hollywood that was coming up right around this time. But like, it just had that, that 50s, 60s vibe. But I love them both, enjoy them both, recommend them both. The Omega Man, Last Man on Earth. Highly recommend them. If you want to kind of see, in my opinion, where George drew a lot of the visual inspiration for Night and Dawn, are in those two films. But yeah, what do you guys think? Are you guys fans of Last Man on Earth and Omega Man? Let me catch up with the comments here. I think we were here. Larry says, thank you for all the support of the events and my tours. Absolutely, man. I mean, those... It's not even like I'm doing it to be nice, because we're friends. I would do it just to be a friend. It's like when you show your friend, a movie you made, or if you're in a band, you wrote a song, you play them a song or something, and your friends will just say, "Oh yeah, that's good, man. Like, everybody check out my friend. He does good shit." Like, that's nice, but like when the friend's like, holy shit, that changed my life, that song has changed my life, and he goes around telling everybody that the song you wrote changed his life, like that's how I feel about Living Dead weekend. Like, going to Pittsburgh for the first time, going to the event, taking the tours, and just immersing myself in this culture that I'd always wanted to immerse myself in. And I want to inspire other people and influence other people to kind of get out there and do the same thing. Because if you're a big enough fan of this stuff to be watching my ass on a Sunday night at 11 o'clock, like, you got to do it. You just got to do it. Because, I mean, you'll kick yourself if you don't. But anyway, absolutely, man. I'll always back with you guys, because it's incredible. Excuse me. Brett says, heck yeah, on the other sites too. Oh, yep, okay. So I'm trying to go back, 10, 15 minutes, trying to catch up on these comments, so it may take me a minute to remember what you guys are talking about. But yeah, you gotta check them out all. Definitely also going to see Evans City Cemetery, the Creep Show House, and George's old office. Yes, 247 Fort Pitt Boulevard. If you can figure out a way to get up on the roof, let us know. Also maybe the Night 90 Cemetery in the airport, if anything. Yeah, the airport, I don't know what the status of the airport is. Last time we were out there in June, everything was pretty much demolished, but the field was still there. They hadn't really started developing anything yet. So, I mean, I don't know if they've started any developments out there. I haven't heard, so I don't really know. But yeah, the Night 90 Cemetery, I love that cemetery because it's got a beautiful view, and it looks just like it did when they shot the film too. Like, you can match shots almost perfectly out there, and it's a beautiful part of western Pennsylvania too, in that Washington, Pennsylvania area. So yeah, check out all you can, man. Try to make time to check out as much as you can, and don't forget to check out Pittsburgh itself, because Pittsburgh is a wonderful city. It's a beautiful city. The people are, I've been to a lot of cities, and you can tell when the vibe of a certain city, the personality of the city reflects the person. You go to these cities and people are just like, fuck you, I want nothing to do with you. But you go to Pittsburgh, everybody's cool as shit. Everybody's like, hey, welcome to Pittsburgh, because it's a blue collar city. Or it is for now, but if I was saying earlier, if there is a big boom coming in terms of population and stuff like that in business, corporate America, that could change. I don't know if I can know, but I mean, Pittsburgh is still it's the it's a wonderful place, and very, very rarely have I ever met anybody that wasn't cool as shit. Brett says, has anyone been able to access to the wampum mine lately? That would be a dream to see too, but bet it's a long shot these days. Yeah, I haven't heard anybody really having too much success on visiting that anytime in a while. I think Larry, you've been there. I know a couple of people that have visited the mine, but I think in terms of like how accessible it is to just any and all, I think it's pretty hard to get in that sucker. Because that's a big one. I would love to walk around those mines, but Jeffrey says, I figured you touched on those. Used to watch them on video in my younger days. Yeah, I mean, Omega Man, Last Man on Earth. I really do feel like, whether George would admit it not that he stole directly from it, but it was definitely in the back of his mind. In terms of making Night and Dawn, I feel like, or at least in terms of Dawn, that first treatment that he wrote right around the time that Omega Man came out. Jeffrey says the first was more faithful to Richard Matheson novel than the second. Yeah. Which there's always the Will Smith version too, if that's more your speed out there, which I've never seen. I've heard good things about it. I've never heard anybody say like, oh, what a horrible movie, but it's one I've never really had the urge to see. Larry says, I enjoy Last Man and Omega Man, especially Omega. I grew up with that since I was little. I enjoy Heston and almost anything. Yeah, Charlton Heston's a pretty badass dude. I do love Charlton Heston, and he is great in the Omega Man. Like he's an action hero, but it's a little over the top because he's like this older guy at this point, but he comes across this like beautiful woman, like the first woman that he's seen in forever, and it's like within like 10 minutes they're fucking, and it's just like okay, I know you're Charlton Heston, but Jesus, but yeah, it's awesome. It's it's your typical 70s. I guess it's more sci-fi than horror. I guess it's more like apocalyptic sci-fi, whereas Last Man on Earth is more apocalyptic horror. Still a little bit of sci-fi in that one too. Matt says 1911 wampum mines are off limits. There you go. Thought about pretending that I had an RV to store there just to get inside and look around. Hey, my parents have an RV. I wonder if they'd let us borrow it just to drive it in, take a look, and then pull it back out and say, I don't think we're gonna keep it here. Thanks for letting us look. Probably talk a bit of that. Steven says, great picks. I personally prefer Omega Man, not only because of memories connected to my dad, but Anthony Zerbe was awesome as the main bad guy, Mathis. Yeah, I mean, and the main bad guy, the leader of the vampires or whatever they are. There's a character in George's original treatment for Dawn who's the leader of the zombies. He's already evolved. Like that first treatment was basically everything that George would do over the next 30 years, but in that first draft. So George had this idea for the evolution of the zombie and the zombies getting smarter and stuff. George had that idea from the start. He just decided to do it over the span of 3 or 4 films as opposed to just one. But there is a character like that in that treatment who's like kind of the leader and kind of comes up with the whole idea is they want to find the 2 characters that are living in the mall. They want to find them and how to track them down and shit like that. So yeah, that's a big part of why I kind of felt that way about the Omega Man and George's influence by it. Aro, there you go, man. I was just talking about you, man. Good to see you. Vincent Price was an absolute legend. The American Peter Cushing. I remember him murdering people in ridiculous ways in Dr. Phibes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Vincent Price, the American Peter Cushing. I can buy that. Larry said, I didn't see Last Man until I was in my 30s. I do enjoy it, though. I never understood the original novel title, I Am Legend, until I saw this version. Yep, there you go. Yeah, I think I first saw it. It was in like one of those pack, like the big packs DVDs back in the day that had like 10, 15 horror movies on them, and like not most of them were horrible, but then every now and then you'd come across a good one, and Last Man on Earth was one in that collection. Brett says maybe I should rent an RV while there. Pull up. Yeah, there you go. It wouldn't hurt. But if you do that, let us know, and we'll come along. Because that's definitely on the list. Aro says, all filmmakers are inspired by the art that has come before. Absolutely. And George has talked about that, too. George has never said, like, oh, I'm completely original when I, George has always talked about the parasitic aspect of filmmaking and how even if you're not consciously thinking, oh, I want to set up a shot this way because I saw it in a Hitchcock film, the stuff that you see just plays a role subconsciously in your mind and in the way that you project your own vision, I guess. And then every now and then the best directors can take that and twist it just a little bit to make it their own. And I think that's pretty much most art these days in general, music, movies, whatever. They always say, like, everything's already been done. And it's kind of true to a point. Bonnie says, big fan of both versions. There you go. There's a lot of fans of Last Man on Earth and the Omega Man. I was kind of worried. I was kind of going to wait and hear somebody say, like, what a, these films aren't as good as George's Night. How dare you compare the two? Which I agree, they're not as good as Night of the Living Dead. I think that was the thing that made Night of the Living Dead special and stand out, is that it did what these films, or at least Last Man on Earth, did what it was trying to do, but took it in a different direction, made it more modern feeling, bringing in like the TV aspect of it and the and I think that's the thing that really resonated with people more so than your typical, sci-fi storyline. Like, there's the story with the radiation and stuff in Night, but they really go into it hard with Last Man on Earth and Omega Man. Oh, I missed your comment there, Brad. I love how Heston drove that car at high speeds through the empty streets. Reminded me of the VW in Dawn. Yeah, and he stops and he watches Woodstock. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about those movies too. Is it kind of, you see this guy, his thing that he loves the most is watching a documentary of people gathering and celebrating life, and it's just something that he's the only man left. He's the only guy that's so he's the loneliest man in the world. Matt says, my dad loved Omega Man. We used to watch together when I was little. Great memories. The film interpretations are great, but I Am Legend is a great read, by the way. I'll take your word for it. I am still working on that Romero economics book, and it's a fascinating read. I think you'd love it, man. I think there's a lot of really good information, a lot of shit I didn't know already, just from what I've read. So, R.O. says zombies were first inspired by victims of the Black Death with their massive lymph nodes and sores. They walked around and grown like zombies. That is why the Italians have been central to the genre. Oh, that's interesting. I've never really heard that take before, or heard that story. I'll have to look more into that, but that totally makes sense. Zombies, there's always been the voodoo aspect of the zombies back in the day that predated Night of the Living Dead. And zombies, I guess, were always kind of portrayed in movies more so as, the slaves or whatnot, but kind of what George would always say, like, oh, they're out doing the Lugosi's, Lugosi's deeds while he's up in the castle. Matt says visiting the mall on Living Dead weekend had a profound impact on my life. Larry's a big part of that. I fully agree, wholeheartedly. There's a reason ever since we went in 2021, Matt. There's a reason that I continue to go back every year and wouldn't miss it for the world. Ed's okay, so here's Ed's 5 for must-see films for every Romero fan. Number 1, Dead End Drive-In. I've never seen that one. Number 2, Tales of Hoffman. That's a perfect one. That was one of George's favorite films, but the film that really inspired George to become a filmmaker. Number 3, Black Narcissus, in 1974, also directed by Palin Pressburger. Number 4, Night of the Iguana, Iguana for the hammock scene alone. And number 5, Mistress of the World. Interesting choices there, I gotta say. I've only seen a couple of those, but I'll write those down because I feel like I need to check those out now. Matt saying Pittsburgh, even the homeless folks are polite. Yeah, it's true. It was such a culture shock compared to Atlanta. The best part is we don't generally see any human feces or crack pipes when we're there. That's true. That is true. The lack of human shit and crack pipes in Pittsburgh is very noticeable, especially after visiting Atlanta. I'll say that. No offense, Matt, to your home base there. Larry says, you really can't get into the mines. I was lucky to be able to arrange a tour for a bunch of people in 2012, but haven't been back since. There you go. Matthias, yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, so yeah, check it out. Last Man on Earth and the Omega Man. And I need to get a copy of Last Man on Earth. I've been looking. I can't find. I know Kino did a version. I think Kino did a release of Last Man on Earth here recently that I was wanting to pick up, but just haven't yet. So we'll set that to the side. So the next film that I'm going to recommend, what do I want to do next? Let's talk about this. This is a fun topic. Everybody loves talking about. In 1982, we get John Russo's Midnight.
What'd you do with my daughter?
Well, she might be right in front of you.
They should have known better when they came into town. Every sign pointed to what could happen there. Every indication told them to leave now. The wise guys in the bar, the preacher's warning, and the sheriff who made hate a way of life. Go, get out of town. We don't want your kind here. But they stayed. They stayed, and it became too late to leave. Too late as the clock approached midnight. Midnight. Now the book from the co-author of Night of the Living Dead comes to life on the screen. Don't miss John Russo's Midnight.
There it is, 1982. John Russo released his, to me, his masterpiece. The best Russo film, in my opinion. And I highly recommend everybody check it out. It's Midnight, 1982. And it's based off the novel that Russo wrote in 1980. Starring, I mean, it's got, as you guys saw, Lawrence Tierney. Most people remember from Reservoir Dogs. John Amplas has a role in this, as well as, what's his name? Greg Besnak. If you guys remember him from Night Riders as the motorcycle guy, you can't miss the mustache. Effects done by Tom Savini. A lot of good about Midnight. Is it perfect? No. Is it great? I wouldn't say it's a great film, but I think it's a fun slasher film from that early 80s period. It's got some occult aspects to it. It's fun. It's kind of cool seeing John Amplas kind of play a psychotic, that's not, Martin, a quiet, reserved type, but just kind of trying to play like a psychotic serial killer type of character. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it. I recommend checking it out. It's John Russo. I highly recommend checking out anything that John Russo does because of, his work from Night of the Living Dead, his connection to George. And him and George were always, John would talk about all, going and showing George these films to get his opinions and stuff. And so, in my opinion, Midnight is John Russo's best film. Say what you want about John Russo. And like we talked about this, me and John talked about this, few weeks back on the stream and kind of went back and forth of John Russo's importance to Night of the Living Dead and just what his career became and I just stand in awe that the guy is still working to this day. Like he's just prolific, if nothing else, in terms of his writing, his stories, his novels, his filmmaking. And that's the thing about, I mean, Midnight made a ton of fucking money. He didn't see very much of it because he made a bad deal, I think, with Vidmark, I think was the company that put this out when it came out, and sold a shitload of VHS tapes of this back in the day. I think the story is, I think the total budget on this was, I want to say $60,000. I think he ended up selling it to Vidmark for 70 or 80, something like that. So he made some money off of it to pay everybody back and everything. But it ended up selling like almost $1 million in copies at video stores and stuff. That's the story that he tells, and that's the thing too. On this release, this is a Severin release. You can find this on Severin. They usually have it on sale when they have their sales. It's usually, I think I bought this for like $8 or something like that. But there's some really good special features on here. One of them is an interview with John Russo. I just watched again here recently, and pretty much the entire interview is, yeah, that sucked, and here's why. And he kind of goes into detail about, like, oh, you know, they wanted us, we were going to shoot it on 16 millimeter, but they wanted us to shoot it on 35. So when we shot it on 35, it cost more money, so we got a bigger budget, and blah blah. And it didn't work because of this, because when you shoot it on 35, and he goes into like the detail of like, oh well, yeah, that sucked, and this is why. But there's great stories on this, and that's pretty much, there's an interview, the bonus features, there's an interview with John Russo, there's an interview with John Amplis, where Amplis is talking about, like, oh yeah, I was just kind of, Amplis is not the biggest fan of his performance in Midnight, I'll just say that. Savini has an interview on this, where Savini's pretty much like, yeah, it was just kind of a favor, I guess, is because I think the name of the thing is Small Favors. Yeah, it was just a small favor. You know, he worked for a little bit of money and just to help John Russo out, because they were friends. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to like about this. There's elements of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this, and kind of like the backwoods. It's like a backwoods occult film. It's just out there. You got to see it though. But it is a Pittsburgh film. There were a lot of George's regulars that worked on this film. I know John Rice worked behind the scenes on this. I'm trying to think of who all. Paul McCullough, who everybody knows is my favorite musician. But he did the soundtrack on this. There's a lot of Romero connections, and it's a Pittsburgh film, shot around that same time period as, like, you know, Dawn and Night Riders, Creepshow. And it's just fun. There's good effects in it because it's Tom Savini, so there's the gunshots and some of the stuff looks really, really good. But it's a fun movie. And if I would suggest, if I were saying, like, check out any John Russo film of his entire, you know, filmography, Midnight would be the one that I would suggest everyone check out. It's John Russo's best, in my opinion. Any fans of Midnight in the house tonight? I got a couple comments on it. Jeffrey says, I actually met Russo here in Asheville, North Carolina, when he came to promote his new Making Movies book. Already had his first Making Movies book and used it as a reference for a couple of essays. There you go. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, Russo's written some, making, independent filmmaking books, and I mean, dude, he's written all kinds of stories, novels, stuff like. I mean, just it's pretty fucking crazy. And yeah, I mean, that's just the constant thing that you got to give to John Russo. And the fact that, like, most of his movies, whether you think they're good, bad, or whatever you think of them, which I will admit, like, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of his movies. Like, I'll get a kick out of them, or there's a certain charm to them for me, but I realize that they're not good films, you know? I realize that they're pretty shitty films. But like Santa Claus, like, it's just fun to see Carl Hardman and Marilyn Eastman and just some of the, the goofiness with Debbie Rashan. There's Bill Heinzman, as the photographer. Like, I appreciate that type of stuff, but I'm not crazy enough to say, like, Santa Claus is a fucking classic. It's not. But the thing you can't argue with when it comes to John Russo is that almost everything that he's ever made has made money, just for the simple fact that he did it on the super, super cheap and was able to get it made one way or another, whether it was his vision or whether it was perfect or, whatever. Pretty much everything that he ever did made money because it was just, it was cheaply made and made a ton of money on home video is most of the story. When it comes to, like, John Russo's work, there were a couple of misses there, but every filmmaker has their misses. But and like I was telling John, Russo's biggest asset is just his ability to say, fuck it, I'm getting it done. I'm getting it made. We're going to finish this. We got to finish this. And I think that played a major role. If nothing else, like, that was kind of his major role that he played in Night of the Living Dead, was just his tenacity and determination to get it done, which has just kind of been the way that his entire career has played out. He's just prolific. He just wants to create, tell his stories, make his movies. I mean, like I said, he's still got shit getting made. Like, he just had a Western. I can't remember what the hell it was called. The Night They Came Home, I think is the name of it. Just came out, like, maybe a year or two ago. It was based off of a story that he had written. So, I mean, he's just, he's just a determined motherfucker. as the dude said on American Movie. He's a determined motherfucker, man. It was at Orbit DVD. Yeah, okay. Larry hit me to the fact that there's a Midnight 2 out there that I'd never really heard of or really seen before. So I ordered that, I don't know, about a week or so ago. So I'm still waiting for that to come in. So I can't wait to see what Midnight. Apparently it's god awful. But there are some cameos from like Jeannie Jeffries. So I'm just curious to see those guys in action again. You're on your own, you're all alone, and midnight's at your door. Yeah, that's a great song. Who wrote that? It's so funny because there's like scenes in that movie where it just does not fit. That song just does not fit the mood, and it's just there, and it's just like, this is weird, this is odd. But I didn't really talk about Lawrence Tierney's performance in this. That's another aspect of Midnight that I think is really good, is Lawrence Tierney's kind of playing the perverted stepfather who kind of tries to redeem himself in the end. But the only thing I really knew Lawrence Tierney from growing up was Reservoir Dogs. He's like, oh, you missed a blonde. I should get Grande on here to do. He does a Lawrence Tierney impression that's fucking spot on. It's hilarious. So when I saw that he was in this John Russo film, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And in watching it, I was like, oh, man, that's fucking Lawrence Tierney. Like, and Russo, and there's always been, I've always heard, like, that Tierney was a pain in the ass to work with on Reservoir Dogs, like, and that's why Quentin never used him again. But Russo, I've heard Russo talk about working with Lawrence Tierney. He just had nothing but praise for him. He's like, I learned a lot. I learned how to direct actors. I became a better actor, a better director working with Lawrence Tierney. And I was like, wow, okay. Like that's pretty fucking cool. Because I've only ever heard the Tarantino stories about how awful he was to work with on Reservoir Dogs. But again, that was like 10 years after Midnight. So I mean, he was a little older, probably a little more cranky at that point. Larry enjoys that song. Yeah, it's a good little tune. It's better than that song that Russo wrote for Santa Claus at the opening credits of Santa Claus. It's like, I'll be alone for Christmas, or whatever the hell it is. It's like, what the fuck is this? Again, perfect example. Russo is not only writing books and making movies, he's writing fucking music too. I mean, the dude just, good, bad, or indifferent, he's fucking making it. Here it is. Take of it what you will. It says I have the OG Midnight VHS. Good artwork. Decent movie as well. There you go. Yeah, I think that tape sold a shitload back in the day, just from what Russo was telling when I was watching that interview with him. I mean, you got to think like 82. That's like early 80s slasher craze. I mean, anything horror at that time was pretty big on home video. Bonnie says Midnight's on my watch list. Haven't seen it. Yeah, check it out. Like I said, I'm not going to vouch and say like, oh, what a fucking revelation, what a great piece of cinema it is. But it's a fun horror movie with some fun cameos from some Romero regulars. There's definitely some good, there's some creepy aspects of it too, like some of the occult stuff. I think the opening of Midnight is pretty fucking hardcore. I won't spoil it for you, Bonnie, but I think the opening's pretty rough. So there's definitely some good about it. Like I said, it's Russo's best in my opinion. So. Larry says, I enjoy Midnight. I have Greg Besnick's rifle prop from it. I can't even say that. Like you, I think this is Russo's best film. There you go. So there you go. From Larry himself. And Larry does not hold back when it comes to his opinions on movies. So yeah, check it out. John Russo's Midnight, 1982. It's the John Russo film. The Russo film to check out. What do I want to talk about next for my third film tonight? Should I keep it in that light? Let's stick with the Romero adjacent films for number 3. So the third film on my list of films that every Romero fan should see, directed by Dusty Nelson. It's 1980s effects.
Okay, let's see a movie.
Nobody is going to believe a spurt of blood.
They'll believe anything we show them.
She's pretty good with that razor, huh? You gotta put her in the movie.
Well, I still don't know what to do when he comes in.
No, you're fine. You're stoned. You're confused. Besides, everything's happening too fast for you to even be scared.
It's trash. Killing somebody on film? It's sick.
No.
People pay to see anything, and I highly recommend you pay to see Dusty Nelson's 1980 film Effects, shot in Pittsburgh, right after Dawn of the Dead, so this is right around the same time. Starring Joe Pilato, John Harrison, Tom Savini, Deborah Gordon, a lot of Romero regulars. This is a Dusty Nelson film. Let me look at the, because I know Pat Booba worked on this as well. I don't think Tony worked on this one. He may have as like an editor, sound, he usually did some like post-production stuff sometimes, but yes, 1980 Effects by Dusty Nelson. And this is a film that not only would I recommend to every Romero fan, just for the simple fact that you get to see an early performance from Joe Pilato, which is a performance which is, like I think we talked about it, I guess it was last week, maybe a week before, that is like a complete 180 from his performance in Day of the Dead. Whereas Day of the Dead, he's very over the top, very boisterous. He's, the dictator, the Napoleon complex guy. In Effects, Pilato is the main baby face of the piece. Like, he's the good guy, and he's like this relatable, kind, just nice dude all around. So it's cool seeing, and he does a great job. So you're not only checking it out to see Pilato, you're checking it out to see John Harrison, of course, did the score for Creepshow, Day of the Dead, Screwdriver Zombie, director of Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, the Dune miniseries, George's close friend and confidant until the day George died. I mean, John Harrison, he even had a small cameo in Diary, I think, so I remember seeing the other night. But he plays the main bad guy, the main heel, the main villain in this film, and he's fantastic. And it's like this silent. It's like he's the guy that doesn't say a lot. He's the quiet psychopath. There's always the wheels turning. He's manipulating, moving the chess pieces. That type of guy. Tom Savini, early role from Tom Savini in this. He's a lot of fun. The one that really stood out to me the last time I watched it a couple of weeks ago, and every time I watch this film, I like it more and more, and I recommend that when you check this out, give it a few weeks and watch it again, because there are things in this film that you will catch on the second, third, fourth tries of going through and watching it that you missed the first time. And for me, it gets better with every viewing. Because you kind of see it's really, really, really well made. I think the biggest negative that I have for Effects is the ending. I think they kind of just started to run out of money, and the ending didn't quite hit on all cylinders. But the rest of the movie, I don't know. I just love it. I like these type of movies anyway. It's just it's a different kind of horror film. It's very self-aware because it's a movie. It's basically a movie about people that are making a movie, but they're not really making a movie. There's actually another bigger thing going on that not everybody's in on. It's one of those type of films. The score is really like the John Harrison does the score on this, and you can kind of hear the early seeds being planted for what he would do with Creepshow and Day of the Dead. Love the score. I actually have it on CD. I bought the effects score on CD not too long ago. But yes, I highly recommend this, not just if you're a Romero fan, I would recommend this film to just if you're a film fan in general, if you're a horror fan in general. I think it's one that everybody should see because it is a legitimately well made, low budget, very, very low budget, but, Pittsburgh made smart. It's a very smart film. The dialogue is very smart, and the performances. Like I was saying a minute ago, I think I've just wandered off, but Deborah Gordon in this, who most people probably just know as one of the zombies in Dawn of the Dead, because she's at a lot of the Living Dead weekends and whatnot. But her performance in this is one that I appreciate more and more the more that I watch it. I think she does a fantastic, and it's just a great look. Like I just every time I watch it, I'm like, damn, like she could have done more. I think she had more of a future in acting, but yeah, I've recommended this to people that aren't huge Romero fans, that are just fans of film in general. I'm like, all right, like my buddy Rory, like he likes Romero stuff, but he likes horror, he likes movies. He's just a film lover, film buff. And this is one that I recommended and he picked up. This is the AGFA release that I got through Vinegar Syndrome. It's the 4K version. It's the best version you're going to find. It's one of the story to effects is kind of. I feel like it would have been bigger if there was a Richard Rubenstein behind it that knew how to market it and knew how to sell it. Maybe get a few more bucks to really make it hit home in that third act. But the story of it is weird, like because they finished filming in 1980, got released in 1980, but it was only released in like a handful of theaters and then like disappeared. I don't even know if it had much of a VHS release. And in the 80s, like if something doesn't have a VHS release, like what the fuck? But it was just one of those films that like nobody really talked about, nobody really heard of for years and years and years. And I think Synapse put out the DVD back in the early 2000s, which I think it's out of print now, kind of hard to find. Then there was the Blu-ray release that I was showing off and talking about, I think, last week. And then this is literally just the best transfer, because I think it's a 4K restoration from the original 16mm camera negative. It's got commentary with producer and star John Harrison, director Dusty Nelson, and editor Pasquale Buba. So yeah, I highly recommend this. It's a really great, late 70s, early 80s, low budget Pittsburgh horror film, but with like so much more going on underneath. And I will say this, there is a scene in this film that I find, it's the snuff, we'll just say when they're watching the snuff film, we won't get into too much detail, but when they're watching I find that truly like one of the more disturbing scenes that I've seen, just because of the reaction of the people that are watching it. Like, they're all reacting differently for different reasons, and then there's confusion. Is this real? Is this not? It's very reminiscent of like the scene from Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, when they're sitting there watching the home invasion on the TV and just their reactions to it. Like, that's the uneasy thing about it. But yeah, check it out. Effects, 1980, directed by Dusty Nelson, starring Joe Pilato, Tom Savini, John Harrison. It's a great film. There's a twist to it. I don't want to say too much and spoil it if you've never seen it, never really heard of it. But yeah, check it out. I think you could probably find it. I think it's on Tubi. Last time I checked. But yeah. So what do you guys think? Got fans of effects in here tonight? That's for my third film that every Romero fan should see. Am I out of my mind? I'm waiting for somebody to say, what a piece of shit, like how dare you choose this. But everybody, dude, I've never really had that experience where somebody's just a dick for no reason. Like, I always thought that, like when I was like, oh, I'm gonna start doing a channel and I'm gonna deal with trolls and people that'll try to fuck with me, and everybody's pretty fucking cool, so hats off to you guys. John says, a dog goes to the bathroom every day doesn't make him particularly special because he's constantly producing. Okay. Larry coming in, yeah. Wow, Vulo is rough on Jack. John says, I'm just messing with Alpha because I think he gives Russo too much credit. Maybe, but I just... It's hard for me to just take, I feel like I would rather give somebody more credit than they deserve than to not give them enough credit. You know what I mean? Like to overpraise somebody as opposed to underpraise. I'm just that kind of guy. Like I would rather be wrong, but still, play the odds than to not give someone the credit that they do deserve. I guess that's just the way that I try to look at it, because there's nothing worse than I don't know. I've had that before in different aspects of I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say. Like playing in bands and stuff back in the day, you get into those little fights back and forth, like, oh, who did this, who did that, who's important, who's not. And it's really stupid at the end of the day, but I think it is important to give people their flowers, I guess. Yeah, it's Joe Pilato, and I'm telling you, Pilato is great in this as the main good. You really see the range that he had, and what a really great actor Joe Pilato is. We all love his performance in Day of the Dead, but to see that range that he has from like Day when and then watching effects, it's a complete 180. It's a completely different type of character. And he's fantastic. Everybody in this movie is fantastic. That's the thing that I think kind of separates this movie from a lot. Like, it's the thing that separates it from Midnight. Midnight, some of the performances, some of the acting, the dialogue is really cringe and not that great. But it is what it is. Whereas effects, it's like the performances are really are well done. The dialogue is like everything kind of ties in together. Like some of the dialogue like is really smart, especially when you go back and watch it a second or third time. Once you catch on to like what some of the dialogue is meaning and what it's kind of foreshadowing. Yeah, I think it's great. Larry says effects is awesome, way ahead of its time. I agree, I love it. Pilato in a totally different type of role is great too. Harrison has great music in it and a great part in it. I fully agree. It is definitely ahead of its time. I think I've said this before about it. Is that it reminds me of like an A24 film before A24 was a thing. Like what people think of now as like elevated horror. Like effects is kind of to me it's kind of one of those like low budget elevated horror films. That people are just gonna love or hate. But But I totally agree, Larry. It is awesome. Bonnie says another one on my watch list. Guess I need to have a movie night. Yeah, I think you'll. Actually, I'd be curious to see which you prefer, because Midnight and Effects are both what I call Romero adjacent films, and they're both good for different reasons to me. So I'd be curious to see which one you prefer, Effects or Midnight. Larry says I try almost every year to get Dusty Nelson to come to Living Dead weekend. That would be awesome. I ask him periodically. I've been friendly with him for a long time, and he likes me, but he won't come out. I'm not sure why. I don't know. Maybe he feels like, who am I? I don't want to sit there and charge people because you get a lot of. I've heard that story a lot with a lot of people that. Kind of like Richard France, like I was kind of Richard France's thing all those years is why he didn't want to do. He's like, I was not important, and I don't feel like I need to sign, But yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to talk to him. And I actually talked to when John Harrison was there a couple of years ago. I actually told Harrison, I think I told the story. I'm just repeating myself talking about effects 2 weeks in a row, but I told Harrison I loved his performance in effects, and he was just like, yeah, really? Like that? You call that a performance? Brett says I have the old effects Blu-ray, but thinking about getting the 4K since they found the long-lost original negative for it. Yeah, I love Pilato's performance and the Harrison score too. There you go. Yeah, I would definitely say the 4K is definitely the best that's probably ever going to look. 'Cause, I mean, it's 16 millimeter. It's not the best film stock that they were using, and I think it looks pretty damn good. I mean, you can kind of see because the trailer there that I played for it was the trailer for that AGFA 4K release. So you can kind of see, you can kind of get a glimpse of in comparing it to that old Synapse DVD or of how good it looks in the 4K. Jeffrey says all three must have been prepping for Day of the Dead 5 years later. Yeah, that movie came out the year I was born, turning 40 this year, just like me. Well, hitting the big 4-0 this year. I think Ed's turning 40 this year too. So I'm kind of seeing where my demographic is here. But hell, I'm fucking almost there too. So I guess it makes sense. Jeffrey says, my mentor in the mass communications department at my alma mater of UNC Asheville was a foreground zombie, and he has often welcomed Tom Savini to the campus to give talks and do autographs and Q&As. That's really cool. Isn't what's the connection with Savini in North Carolina? Didn't he live there for a while? Wasn't he doing theater there for a while, if I remember correctly? I don't know. Somebody here's got to know the answer to that. Larry says, Harrison has seen how much I enjoy this film and how much I've talked about it over the years and sent me a free signed copy on Blu-ray with the Blu-ray. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm glad you're a fan of that, Larry. I was curious because I love it. I was blown away. Like, it's one that I had never seen until a few years ago, and then I came across it on YouTube, and it's just one that I was just like instantly drawn to. I was like, wow, this is like actually good, because you never really know. Like when you watch some of these Romero adjacent films, I say this, Romero adjacent is what I call them, but any like Pittsburgh horror films and stuff, the people that were attached to George at one point or another, you never really know. Like, I'm going into it just like, all right, well, if nothing else, I get to see Jeannie Jeffries, or I get to see, somebody else in a different role than what I really know them from. It's just going to be cool to see them. And then every now and then you come across something like Effects, and you're like, fuck, I don't even care if whoever's in this movie, this is a good fucking movie. Like, this is a really well-made, interesting, effective movie. It's effective. That's my review of Effects. Effective. My one-word review on Rotten Tomatoes. It said Effects cost only $55,000 to make, according to John Harrison. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And yes, I actually have that here on standby too. If anyone is a fan of this film, they need to get the Red Shirt Pictures After Effects documentary Blu-ray on its creation. It's fantastic. I had this sitting by as well. This is a fantastic documentary because it not only has interviews with Dusty Nelson, Pat Buba, John Harrison, people that were directly involved, but George is in this as well. Pilato's in this. And it's really, they're just kind of sitting around the pool just shooting the shit, talking about Pittsburgh filmmaking back in the day. And you can kind of, one thing I noticed too when watching this was you can kind of see the relationship that George and John Harrison had and their friendship, how they kind of, had the same sense of humor and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely recommend. This is a Felsher directed documentary, After Effects. So it's a good duo to have. To have the complete collection of effects and After Effects. I think that's a better angle there. We'll just go with that. But yeah, highly recommend picking that up as well. It says I found some info on Effects limited release that I will send you. Okay, awesome. We'll check that out. Savini was stationed at Fort Bragg in Nam. He did a lot of theater there in Fayetteville. Yep, I remember hearing he had some connection to North Carolina. I figured Larry would probably know. That's where fucking Larry's at. But yeah, check out Effects. That's I just can't stress that enough. All right, so 2 more films that I would highly recommend everyone go out of their way to check out if you're a Romero fan. And this is one that came out in 1977 from a very well-made film, or a well-known filmmaker. And he is, in the past in interviews, called this film Night of the Living Dead with a Libido. Of course, I'm talking about 1977, David Cronenberg's Shivers. Shivers. Love Shivers. I'm going to play one of my all-time favorite scenes from Shivers, featuring Lynn Lowry, who, of course, has a connection with Romero for the Crazies. But yes, let's watch this scene, this Lynn Lowry scene from Shivers, and then we'll come back and talk about it here in just a second. But this is one of my all-time favorite scenes in any horror film. So here we go. Bam! Shivers, 1977, David Cronenberg's, well, I guess you could call it, I mean, he made some shit before that, but really his big breakout film, 1977, Canadian-made, Shivers, starring Lynn Lowry, Joe Silver, Paul Hampton, and Barbara Steele has a role in this. Everybody knows. And produced by Ivan Reitman. That's one of the first films that Ivan Reitman ever produced. So Shivers, I don't know if those of you who have not seen Shivers, I'll just read the description here on the back of this box. When the residents of a luxury apartment complex outside Montreal are infiltrated by parasites and transformed into violent, sex-crazed maniacs, it's up to Dr. Roger St. Luc to contain the outbreak from spreading to the city at large in a film that scares and shocks us because it's so cleverly made, according to Roger Ebert. So yeah, it's basically Night of the Living, as Cronenberg has called it since, Night of the Living Dead with a libido. It's about, instead of turning, getting the bug and turning into flesh-eating zombies or flesh-eating ghouls, you get the bug and you turn into a sex-crazed maniac and you become a horny zombie, basically, is basically what it is. It's David Cronenberg. So, I mean, you hear that concept, that synopsis there, and you're like, oh, that's got to be, some real corny exploitation type shit, but it's actually it's really really well made. Like there's definitely Cronenberg influence in it, but there's definitely Romero influence in it. And Cronenberg has talked about the influence that Night of the Living Dead had on Shivers, especially the end scene when everybody's kind of gotten. When everybody in the apartment tower, the Starliner Apartments is what it's called. And of course, it's got that isolation aspect to it that Romero always uses in his Dead films, because they're all just kind of stuck in this high-rise tower on an island somewhere, and everybody slowly gets the bug, but the only way that they transfer it is the parasite mouth to mouth, or some type of person to person connection like that. You get it's like getting bit, but you turn into a sex crazed maniac. It's done really, really well. This is probably, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, just from watching that scene there, but it's Lynn Lowry's best performance. I mean, we all know Lynn from The Crazies and I Spit on Your Grave and Sugar Cookies, and she's usually just kind of there to be the eye candy, but in this one, she actually performs. Like, she's actually pretty damn good in this role. But yeah, there's definitely influence there that Cronenberg drew. It's basically Cronenberg doing a Romero film. I would say that about Shivers, and I would say that about Rabid as well. I think there's a lot of Romero influence in Rabid, the film that Cronenberg did after Shivers. But it pretty much tells that same type of story, the idea of revolution that George always talked about. His idea with with Night of the Living Dead, the idea that of this revolution, this society devouring the old and starting over in a different way, whereas in Night of the Living Dead, it was the dead coming back to life and literally devouring the humans. And then the story progresses, through the rest of the films, where it's like they've taken over, like they've inherited the earth. Same type of story with Shivers, with Cronenberg Shivers. It's the parasite hits and it's transferred from one person to another, and then before you know it, who's in the minority and who's not. As like Dr. Logan would say, it's like we're in the minority now. It's that same kind of that same kind of thinking with this film. And it has a very Romero-esque ending, where Romero always talked about, like, what's the point in doing a horror film when the whole point of doing it is to upset the apple cart and turn the world on its head and create all this upheaval? What's the point of doing that if you bring everything back to normal at the end? Shivers doesn't do that. Shivers has a very bleak, but also at the same time kind of not hopeful, but it's not like the end of the world type of ending in this. And I think that's the thing that kind of separates this film from like what other directors would have done with a concept like this and just turned it into pretty much, like a softcore exploitation type of film. Whereas Cronenberg comes in and adds like a real artistic view and kind of it makes you, adds an aspect to it that makes you think at the end. Makes you contemplate, like, would it actually be that bad? Because basically what happens when you get the bug, or you get the parasite in Shivers, is it takes away all of your inhibitions, your sexual inhibitions. You just become a pure 100% sexual creature. It doesn't matter. There's no gay, there's no straight, there's no nothing, there's no sexuality. It just doesn't matter. Everybody's fucking everybody, and nobody cares what you look like, your age, good or bad. nobody cares, and that's all it does. It doesn't make you murderous, really. It doesn't really do. I mean, I guess if you're trying to get a piece and you end up accidentally killing somebody, there's a few aspects of that, but that's basically the main idea of the movie, and it makes you think, kind of toy with the idea. It's like, oh, would that be the worst thing in the world? Because the characters, other than that, are still pretty much their same self, but all they're thinking about is just like, let's continue, let's fuck, let's turn the world into just one great big orgy, as Joe Silver's character says in the movie. It's definitely Cronenberg taking on the sexual revolution and kind of saying, like, imagine a world where there are no inhibitions, no tastes, like nobody's worried, oh, you're too fat or you're too skinny or you're this or you're that. It's just like, let's fuck. So it gives you, it plays with that idea that of like, would that be so bad? Is that, which obviously it would be, but at the same time, it's like there are fates worse than that. So it does tackle that idea of like a sexual revolution and kind of tackling the idea of the lack of inhibition and discrimination, I guess. But to me, that's a very Romero-esque ending. It's like Night of the Living Dead. It's like, it doesn't go back to normal. The world they don't find the cure and wipe out all the zombies and back to work. That doesn't happen in a Romero film. That doesn't happen in Shivers either. But I've always been a big fan of Shivers. There's performances in this, like some like physical performances. There's some good gore in it. There's some really gross shit in it. There's, Lynn Lowry, topless and nude. There's what's not to like. But it definitely feels very much like a Romero film. I've heard, I can't remember who said that before, but I've heard some people say that before about Shivers, that it feels like Cronenberg's Romero film. So if you haven't seen Shivers, give it a watch. Check it out. I wouldn't recommend watching it with your grandparents or anything, but if you're by yourself or whatever, give it a watch. Check it out. It's very Romero-esque. I want to say that. As Cronenberg said, Night of the Living Dead with a libido. I think that's the perfect way to say it. Alright, what do you guys think of Shivers? Larry says, I enjoy Shivers a lot. Love Lynn. I've had the good fortune to meet her from the airport a bunch of times over the years for a Living Dead weekend. I would love to get her. I'd love to get her back. I met Lynn back in 2008 at that Texas Frightmare Week where everybody fucking was. And she was super sweet. I got her to sign I think that one, for whatever reason, I got her to sign the event poster. But yeah, I'd love to see Lynn again. I introduced her one time at a screening of The Crazies. Nice lady. Yeah, she's always seemed really, really cool. I had definitely a huge crush on her when I was younger. Like when I was first seeing, especially in like I Drink Your Blood. Like that's one that I remember first seeing. I was like, wow. I think I even saw her. I may have seen her in that before I saw her in Shivers or The Crazies, actually. Jeffrey says David Cronenberg is up there in my top 10 favorite filmmakers. Yeah, he's probably definitely top 10, maybe top 5 for me. I don't know. Maybe not top 5. Definitely top 10 though. Now I'm thinking about it. Along with Toby Hooper and Romero, I didn't see this film until I stumbled across a YouTube upload of the unrated version. Lynn Lowry is sexy. I agree with that. But yeah, I think the first time I saw it, because it's one of those films that it was really, you didn't see a whole lot of on like DVD or VHS back in the day. At least I didn't. So it was one that I was wanting to see for a while because it was featured in that documentary that I love and have talked about before, The American Nightmare, that aired on IFC back in 2001. It was featured in that. And I remember seeing the scenes from that and thinking like, wow, is this a zombie movie? What is this? But it seems really weird. Like, I got to see this. So I finally got like the torrent when I was just in that phase where I was just torrenting everything from Pirate Bay. I found a version and watched it, and that was one that I watched and could watch over and over and over again. It may be my favorite Cronenberg film. It's between Shivers and maybe Videodrome, but I do love fucking Shivers. Bunny says it's been a long time since seeing Shivers. Got to watch it again. Yeah, and this is a release that came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. Actually, I got it right here. When did this come out? It doesn't really say. But it's like 4 or 5 years ago. It doesn't fucking matter. But yeah, Vestron released this, and it was really affordable. I think they just did a steelbook release of that at Walmart that I've seen here recently as well. But this one you can find for 10, 15 bucks now. It's got some good bonus features on it, a couple commentaries, one with David Cronenberg, some interviews, Steel Gallery. So yeah, I mean, it's packed. I mean, it's one, it's Vestron. So very affordable and very good film. Very good film. Steven says, I own the same Blu-ray and absolutely agree with your pick. I also highly recommend Videodrome. Yep, like I said, it's between Shivers or Videodrome. Videodrome was one that I had to see more than once to really pick up on and get for the first time. Not exactly related to George directly, but like George had a very interesting take on the future. Yeah. Definitely agree with that. And George would never, I don't think George would ever make a film like this because George was never, I don't know, I've never really associated George with sexuality or the human body like I would associate that with Cronenberg throughout his entire career. But it's still got the same vibe, the same idea to it, I think. Larry said, we had her at Living Dead Weekend 2016 2019, both times in Evans City. She wants to do Monroeville, but we haven't been able to bring her out to the big show yet. She has asked me several times if she could fit her. Yeah, I mean, I think, let's see. So 2023 would have been the anniversary for the Crazies. I was curious about that. I was hoping to see maybe the Evans City show or something would do like a Lynn Lowry, Richard France. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of people you could get for a Crazies reunion, but I'm sure you could find some folks. But yeah, I think that would work. Bonnie says that was a possible direction for Night, right? They would be sex fiends. I don't think so. I mean, maybe Russo floated that out there. I don't remember ever hearing that, but that sounds like something Russo may have floated out there. It's like, hey, how about we make them sex fiends and we can really sell this fucking picture? Because Russo, like I said, very rarely lost money on a movie because he was usually thinking in that context of like, oh, what would be the cheapest and most profitable way to make a movie? And that's why we got Booby Hatch and Santa Claus and stuff, shit like that, Ara says Shivers was a nutcase movie, chilling because they are effectively zombies with faculties. Remember that from when I was a kid. It's probably a good thing the sexual narrative went over my head. Yeah, probably. But yeah, pretty much. I mean, they're just zombies with their faculties, and instead of just a never-ending craving for human flesh, they're craving dick or whatever, or their poon. I don't know, but they don't really discern. They don't really care. Everybody's fucking everybody in that movie. It says I compare Shivers more to the Crazies than Night. Yeah, that's a good, because I guess the bug, people getting it, and kind of where you can't but I guess the thing with the Crazies, though, you can't really tell who's infected, whereas in the Shivers, you could tell, because it's like old people, just, it doesn't matter, like, kids, like, there's a child there that's very reminiscent of Kyra Schoen's scene from Night of the Living Dead, Karen Cooper. It is fucking out there. It's very much, as Aro put it, a nutcase movie. As it has the Contagion angle. There you go, yeah. TCCK, what's up, man? It says that movie sounds pretty relevant to modern times. Yeah. Kind of, yeah, weird way, yeah. But without any real preference, I guess, is the thing with shit where you're just like, or you're basically Frank Booth from Blue Velvet. I'll fuck anything that moves. That's basically everybody in Shivers. Yeah, Bonnie saying probably Russo. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, shit, I don't blame him. I mean, Romero, thank God that he did that, because Romero originally wanted to do Wine of the Fawn instead of Night of the Living Dead, where before they came with the idea to do Night of the Living Dead, and there would just been no way that a movie, low budget, for what that movie would have been, because it would have been like a Bergman type film. It would have been very artsy fartsy, and yeah, there's no way that that would have made any money and had any success for any of them, and we probably wouldn't have. They would, who knows what would happen to their careers if they had done Wine of the Fawn instead of Night of the Living Dead. So I'm happy that whether it was Russo, Romero, Striner, whoever it was that came up with the idea, is like, hey, let's just make a horror movie because it's easier to market and easier to sell. Hey, that was brilliant thinking to me. And I tend to think that was Russo because that was how Russo conducted pretty much the rest of his entire career. So, but yeah, so there's 4 in the bag of the 5 films that every Romero fan should see. Last Man, well, I guess 5 because I did a 2 for 1. Last Man on Earth and the Omega Man, Shivers, Effects from 1980, and Midnight. Speaking of the man himself, John Russo's Midnight from 1982. So I got one more here. And I think if you're a regular viewer of this channel, if you know me, if you play a drinking game because of me related to this topic, you probably know where I'm going with my 5th and final choice for films that every Romero fan should see tonight. And I'm talking, of course, about 1988's masterpiece, the Tony Bubba masterpiece, Lightning Over Braddock.
'Cause I remember when I was a boy, this was the only place to be. Busy shoppers walking.
The real name's Salvatore. Salvatore, found out. But it's a beautiful name. I mean, savior. Savior. Am I a savior? I'm a killer. I'm a killer. I'll pop somebody in a second.
Steve, get over here. Say, I can't, I'm sorry, I like you, but you can't do it. Steve, get in costume, take his place.
My friend, my so-called friend. Loved you like a son. But what did you do to me? Threw me to the wolves. But now, my friend, my friend, you're nothing to me now. Nothing! Now you're gonna go back where you come from. You're going back to the swamp where your ancestors came from. You're born alone, you live alone, and you croak alone. Get him!
It's over. It's tied up.
No joke, Tony. No joke, my man. It's croaking time. It's croaking time. Croaking time! Should have did that long time ago, you dummy.
It's croaking time! Fucking love Sweet Sal. I love Tony Bubba. I love Lightning Over Braddock. I've talked about this movie a billion times. Can't recommend it enough. Is it a parody? Is it a documentary? Is it a mockumentary? I don't know. I can't tell you, where it begins, where it ends, but Lightning Over Braddock is a 1988 film directed by Tony Bubba, shot and based in the town of Braddock, Pennsylvania, which is, of course, where George shot Martin. And Braddock is pretty much a character in Martin. And Tony Bubba had so you may remember Bubba as, if you're a Don fan, he's the guy, the one in the biker gang that gets his arm ripped off. In the blood pressure machine, and the sombrero guy. That's Tony Bubba. And Tony worked with George for quite a few films over the years. But Tony was a local filmmaker in Braddock, Pennsylvania, in the Pittsburgh area. And has spent the last, 50 years, at least 55, almost 60 years, really thinking about it, from his first films. Like 72, so yeah, just looking on the back of this, but Tony Bubba was a local filmmaker, and he pretty much has spent his entire life documenting the downfall of his hometown, Braddock, Pennsylvania. And I know on the surface, and I thought this too before I bought this and watched this, and this was 5 years ago maybe the first time I saw this, and I bought this as a Kino Lorber release, and I just thought, oh, it's going to be a documentary about the downfall of Braddock, and it's going to be interesting because I'm interested in that stuff, but it's just going to be your run-of-the-mill documentary about, like, oh, the steel mills are closing, and the stores aren't making money, so they're closing, and everything's falling apart, and everything's going to shit, and I thought it was going to be kind of like a downer thing, because I wasn't too familiar with Tony's work until this point. So then I watched this movie, and I'm just drawn in. Like, what am I watching? This is not at all what I was expecting. It's something completely different. It's uniquely Tony Bubba. Like, that's the thing about Bubba's stuff, is his short films, like, even if he's covering dark, depressing topics, because, I mean, when you're covering something like the decline of a town like Braddock, it can get really heavy and depressing at times. But Bubba has this genius, brilliant fucking way of adding his sense of humor and his take to it to make it, like, perfect example with Lightning Over Braddock. Most of the characters, the main characters, Sweet Sal, Steve Pellegrino, J. Roy, a lot of the characters that are used in this film were just locals from Braddock, just people that, store owner in Braddock, guy who plays a fucking accordion, just people from Braddock. But Bubba has a way of making these people. He has a way of making Braddock look like that Braddock has just a ridiculous amount of some of the most entertaining and interesting people you will ever meet in your life, like Sweet Sal, and like the story of Sweet Sal in this movie. Because one of Bubba's early, more successful short films was entitled Sweet Sal. It's on my channel if you want to check it out, where he follows around this guy they call Sweet Sal, who's just kind of the guy that walks around Braddock that has this over-the-top, larger-than-life personality, but is one of the most entertaining, like, interesting short films. And the idea of this is that all these years later, I mean, it's probably about 10, 15 years later since Sweet Sal. I think Sweet Sal was 76, so this would have been 12 years after the fact. So Sal's still looking like, oh, why does this motherfucker not give me more roles? Like, I made him who the fuck he is, like, and the whole thing. But it's also telling the story in complete Booba way, like, telling the story of the decline of Braddock, and just telling the story of the people of Braddock, and they kind of goes into, like, all the political stuff that was going on at the time, and a lot of the rallies, and a lot of the stuff with the steel mills closing and the unions. And Bubba has just a brilliant way of bringing all that together in this one film, where he's showcasing all these interesting, larger-than-life characters in situations that you don't know are real or not, whether what's manipulated, or does this person really act like this? Do they really think this way? It's really, really interesting. And it's one of those films that if you don't know what to expect going in, or if you have a preconceived idea of what it's going to be going in, that, like, you're really, like, very quickly you're going to realize, like, oh shit, this is not what I was expecting. And you may like it or you may not. Like, it may not be for everybody, but I can say, like, from a lot of people that I've recommended this film to, like, they come back and they're like, oh dude, that was awesome. Like, I showed Will it was last year at Living Dead Weekend. He'd never seen it, so we sat down and I showed him Lightning Over Braddock, and he was just like, oh, this is fucking great. Like, this is awesome. Matt watched it for the first time on my recommendation. He enjoyed it, Landrum. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out Lightning Over Braddock, and I highly recommend getting this release, because this Kino release not only has Lightning Over Braddock, it also includes the Braddock Chronicles, which are all of Booba's short films, including Sweet Sal, including J. Roy's New and Used Furniture, which is just a fucking awesome short film. But it's also got, the short that he did on Steve Pellegrino, the guy with that does the accordion, plays Jumpin' Jack Flash at the bar. It's, like I said, it's just showcasing all these interesting characters. There's also a short film on this on Gary Peabody, I believe is his name, who plays the zombie, the very first zombie that you see in Dawn of the Dead, the one that's missing the foot in the in the apartment complex. It's a guy. That guy is a guy by the name of Gary Peabody. I think his first name is Gary. I might be wrong about that. I have to go back and recheck if anybody wants to correct me. But it tells his story. That's a dude from Braddock that Tony Bubba knew growing up. That he fell out of a 6-story window, and fell to the ground and should have died. Like he was. It's a miracle he survived, but he ended up losing his foot, and I think he had brain damage and other nerve damage and stuff. But the short film kind of follows him around, tells this really interesting story, lets him tell his story of what it's like, being like that. And I'm just like, oh, this guy has such an interesting story. But for me, like all these years, like I just knew him. I was like, oh, that's the guy from Dawn of the Dead. That's a zombie from Dawn of the Dead. But this dude had one of the crazy lives, and I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's called Peabody and Friends is one of the shorts on this. But I mean, it's a shitload of short films. It's pretty much everything Tony Bubba's ever done. And usually when Kino has a sale, I see these for $8 for the Blu-ray. So I mean, you're getting 100%. You're getting your money's worth on these. It's a 2-disc set, so you got 2 discs worth of shit here. And when I met Tony Bubba for the first time at Living Dead Weekend last year, back in June, I had him sign my book on this one, the shot of him and Sweet Sal there. Which he was very surprised. He was like, not a lot of people talk to me about, Sweet Sal and Lightning Over Braddock, and he's like, he's thinking about doing a sequel, and that's the thing about Tony. Bubba is like Russo in that way. I mean, very different taste-wise and style-wise, but Bubba Tony works, man. Like he never stops. He's never going to stop. Him and John Russo both are going to be those guys that they're going to have to drag them off set, like that's it. They're going to have to be dragged off the fucking stage. But he's still working and releasing stuff to this day. And he mentioned wanting to do a sequel to Lightning Over Braddock. I think he's talked about he's been working on that for a while. But so that's it. My 5 films that I would recommend every Romero fan see at least once: Lightning Over Braddock, directed by Tony Bubba, 1988. Effects, directed by Dusty Nelson, 1980. Midnight, directed by John Russo, 1982. Shivers, directed by David Cronenberg, 1977. And fifth and not least, or maybe it is least. Oh, I got 5 and 6. There's the 2 for 1. Last Man on Earth, starring Vincent Price from 1964. And The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston from 1971. So there you go. I look at this. I over-deliver. I promise you 5. I give you 6, man. So there you go, folks. What do you guys think? Fans of Lightning Over Braddock? Have you guys seen Lightning Over Braddock? Because again, it's one that not a lot of people have seen yet, but I would totally recommend checking it out. So Larry says, okay, Lightning is a good choice. I need to watch it again. I only watched it maybe once. I have the Blu-ray. There you go. Yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, man, because it's one that's I just enjoy the way that Tony inserts his sense of humor into it, and Tony's sense of humor, he does it with everything, even like his serious documentaries and serious dark subjects. He has a way of putting his spin, his sense of humor on it. R.O. says, so Shivers was people turning into the French. Yep, pretty much. That's pretty much what it is. The goddamn French Canadians up there, man, in Montreal. That's a good point. Bonnie says, I was waiting for Carnival of Souls. Lightning Over Braddock is something, though. Let's see, there you go. I mean, it's a little, it could be divisive, but I'm telling you, I fucking love this movie. And George has a cameo in this. There's a cameo with George. I think Gornick is in it. Pat Booba's in it. There's little cameos in it of George from right around this time period, in the late 80s. And to me, again, it's the story of Braddock. I love the town of Braddock. I love the story of Braddock. And Braddock is such a prominent character in Martin. Like the location itself is a character in Martin. So I don't know. I've always been fascinated with towns like Braddock. So maybe that plays a role into it too. But you never know. I might do another 5 at some point. And Carnival of Souls may pop up. There were a couple that people mentioned tonight that might pop up in the future if I ever do another one of these. Larry says, seeing the trailer, I remember it well. I must have seen it at least twice. So John says he's only seen effects from this bunch. So there you go. There's some homework for you, John. I know you don't watch a whole lot of movies, but if it ain't night or dawn, you're just like, eh. But yeah, I would recommend checking out all of these. I think if you've only seen effects, I would recommend. I think you would really, especially right now, would be really interested in checking out Last Man on Earth. I think you see what I'm talking about, the connections there between Last Man on Earth and Night of the Living Dead for sure. Ed Trader says, fun fact, Braddock, Missing in Action 3 also came out in 1988. That's funny. Am I still on? Yeah, I think I'm good here. Sorry, I thought I froze up there for a second. Larry says, on a side note, I've been to Tony Booba's house with Daz. That was cool. Another side note, I've been inside the Kudus house from Martin, formerly owned by the Booba family. Yeah, I've driven by that house multiple times. One time, excuse me, I think it may have been the most recent time when I went out there with Will back last June. We were driving by it, and there was a lady sitting on the front porch, and I thought about it. I was like, should we maybe get out and ask, like, hey, can we step inside your house for a second? But no, I don't want to do that. Braddock's not, I don't know, it doesn't come across as the friendliest or, I don't know, part of the world, but I've never really had any issues out there. I've been, like, I hear people say that all the time. It's like, oh, Braddock, that's where you go if you want to get fucking shot and fucking stabbed, robbed, and left for dead in the street. Like, I've never had that experience. I've only gone during the day. I don't know what it's like at night, I guess, but during the day, like, I've been out there with my camera and just walking around and filming shit and taking pictures. Nobody's ever bothered me or said fucking boo to a goose, so I don't know. I always get a vibe of like a very tight-knit community, though, in that town. And I think that really comes across in Booba's work a lot, is that the town's willingness to stand up and fight to keep what they have, and they continue to do it even though pretty much every fight they've ever fought, they've lost when it comes to that town. But they still, it's almost like it's bred into them. If you're from Braddock, like you're just, you're fighting is in your spirit. And I always get that vibe when I'm there. There's always some kind of like community gathering or, stuff going on. So I don't know. I don't know. It's rough. Don't get me wrong, but anyway, TCCK Gaming says, thought you might find this interesting, but you have a young fan. Me, I've been watching since I was like 13. Oh, that's cool, man. Recently turned 15 last month. Love Romero and classic horror. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because we were talking earlier. I was like, I see where my demographics are at, because I'm late 30s, and I think most people that I know that watch this are 40s. We're all about the same age, so it's good. I'm glad to see that I'm bringing in the young crowd, and I'm glad that there's a perfect example right there of Romero's legacy still ringing true to the young folks, and hopefully we'll keep going after we're dead and gone with folks like TCCK. But that's cool, man. I'm glad you let me know that. I'm glad we're not all just a bunch of old farts saying, oh, back in my day, like shit was better. And it's like, no. We got some cool kids in here too. Excuse me. Larry says, I've only had good experiences in Braddock and with the people there. There you go. So, yeah, like I said, I've never experienced any like heckling or anything like that. Like everybody there's always been just nice, and that's why I thought like, oh man, maybe I could ask that lady, like she'd be cool. Like I wonder if she knows. I would wonder. I think she may know, because I think they're probably just rent. I don't know if she would own it or not, but I'm sure she's had people drive by and look or come out there before and look. If she's been there for a while, I don't know. She may have just moved in, but yeah, I've always had I've always enjoyed my time in Braddock, believe it or not. Jordan Carper, what's up, man? Good to see you tonight. That's a new name. Good to have you, sir. Romero is a legend. I think that is a understatement, sir. I highly agree with that. Romero is definitely a legend. But thank you for watching, man. Good to see you. But yeah, so yeah, those are my 5. What do you guys think? Good, bad, nah, could do better. Like I said, maybe I'll do another 5 at some point. maybe this will be kind of a continuing thing, like 5 more films that, you know, blah, blah, blah. You never know. It's like with a movie. It's like you put the first one out. If it makes money, we'll make more. You know, it's like Hollywood. It's like, oh, that movie made money. Let's fucking keep doing it. So if you like this concept, we just do more shit like this. But yeah, like I said, next week it's going to be the return of Collecting the Dead, and the man himself, Ed Trader, Music and Entertainment, is going to be joining me. And like I said, he's already shown me some photos of some of his collection that he had. He has a fucking cabin, you know, on its own of just his shit. So, and it's not just Romero shit. Like, it's he's got a Romero, he's got some Romero stuff, but he's got fucking any and everything. So, you know, we'll touch on the Romero stuff, but I also kind of just want to see everything else that he has, because it's a fucking hell of a collection. So don't miss that next weekend. Collecting the Dead returns, and this episode's going to be all about Ed Trader, Music and Entertainment. So looking forward to that. Check out the shop.alfaromero.store. Zombie Historian say he just picked up the Day of the Dead calendar shirt, I guess is what we'll call it. So yeah, check that out. Still some got a new design on the way that I think's kind of cool. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, check that out. Shop.alfaromero.store. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Jordan, I don't know if you, like I said, I think you're a new name. But if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. Notifications bell, get updated anytime I put some shit up, and if it's something you're interested in, check it out as well. Excuse me. I think, yeah, this is about the time that I gotta go, because I've been starting to lose my voice. It's getting to that point where I'm starting to get raspy, and I noticed that when I listen back to my shit, because I gotta edit it sometimes to put it to a video. I'll go listen back, and I'm like, God damn, you're making all those goddamn throat clearing noises, all the grunting and shit. Which is usually bad around this time of year just because of allergies and shit, but the cold weather. Ed, good to see you, my man. Good choices. Great hearing from you all. Absolutely. I'll see you next week, sir, and I'll be in touch with you to set that up and get that ready to go. But yeah, hope everybody has a great rest of the night. I'm going to hop off here. Like I said, we'll be back next week. I'll drop some more shit throughout the week. But in the meantime and in between time, if you haven't seen some of these films, check them out. Highly recommended. But until then, everybody out there, have a great rest of the night, great rest of the week, and always, stay scared.